Chapter 350. This infuriates Rue Zhu, who was shouting. After she and Shi Lanling entered the Emperor Garden, they found that the Emperor Garden was very large, divided into two courtyards. Although the guards pointed them in the right direction, they still got lost in the courtyard. Unfortunately, this inner courtyard was empty, not even a shadow. Finally seeing Mayan and Ingmei, Rue Zhu naturally called out to them. Who would have thought that these two insignificant servants would actually not put her and the miss in their eyes at all? Rue Zhu rushed to Mayan and Ingmei in 2 or 3 steps, angrily rebuking. Are you deaf? My miss told you to stop, didn't you hear? Mayan raises her eyebrows. Are you calling us? As soon as Rue Zhu saw Mayan's face, she was taken aback and couldn't even speak for a moment. Because the girl in front of her is really too beautiful, especially that snow-white skin, and that pair of charming peach blossom eyes that don't smile. They're so beautiful that people can't take their eyes off her. That appearance is even more outstanding than her misses. Who is this person? Why is she in the Emperor Garden? Seeing that she doesn't answer, Mayan is about to leave. Rue Zhu suddenly reacted and immediately shouted, You're the servants of this courtyard, right? Quick, take my miss to CD June. Mayan is wearing plain clothes today, and Ingmei is wearing the most common guard uniform. Therefore, Rue Zhu immediately recognized them as maids and guards. As they spoke, Shi Lanling also slowly walked forward. Her clothes were the same as the plain dress, but the fabric of her clothes and the accessories on her body, which one of them isn't worth 1,000 pieces of gold. As she walked, the skirt of her dress fluttered, making her look elegant and otherworldly. Normally, in the Ghost City, as long as Shi Lanling appears like this, everyone present, whether men or women, would be overwhelmed by her elegant demeanor. Some people would even prostrate themselves before her. However, today, Shi Lanling slowly walked forward, still as otherworldly as before, like an otherworldly blue lotus. But in exchange, Mayan and Ingmei only stared at her indifferently. Mayan looks at Ingmei. Do you know them? Ingmei shakes her head. I don't. They're probably actors hired by Han Yi. Miss June, let's not delay here any longer. Jun Sheng is waiting for you. After saying that, he didn't even look at Shi Lanling and Rue Zhu again and was about to leave. Lingren. Shi Lanling felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She simply couldn't believe what she had heard. Wherever Shi Lanling, went, she would be sought after by tens of thousands of people. These two people actually dared to treat her as a performer. Rue Zhu was so angry that her face was twisted. You. What nonsense are you talking about? You two lowly maids, do you know who my miss is? Ingmei looked at them coldly. The long sword in his hand is unsheathed, overflowing with murderous intent. If you're not performers invited by Han Yi, then why can you come in? Don't you know that any outsiders who enter the Emperor Garden will be killed without mercy? The icy killing intent and the powerful pressure caused Rue Zhu's expression to change slightly. She staggered 2 steps back. It took him a lot of effort to stabilize himself. His already ugly expression became even fiercer. Who the hell are you? Aren't you just 2 servants from the Emperor Garden? How dare you shout at my young Mississippi? Chapter 351. Hearing Rue Zhu's Ghost City's esteemed guest, Mayan finally lifts her eyelids, looking over with a smile that isn't a smile. Esteemed guest? You're Shi Lanling? Shi Lanling nods haughtily, about to speak. Abruptly meeting Mayan's face, her heart thumps. The appearance of this maid in front of her is really too outstanding, although Shi Lanling is unwilling to admit it. But this lowly servant is actually more beautiful than her. How can she accept this? On the contrary, Rue Zhu is the first to react. Raising her chin, she arrogantly says, Since you know who my family's miss is, still not leading the way? If you delay my family's miss and Jun Shang's meeting, I'm afraid that you 2 servants won't be able to bear the consequences. Ingmei's face sinks, unable to bear it any longer. She's about to make a move. She can tolerate this so-called Shixianzi humiliating her, but she can't stand Miss June being humiliated. However, Mayan stops Ingmei's actions. Want to see Jun Shang? Her pink lips rise up into a pretty curve. Since it's Shixianzi's order, we will certainly obey. Pausing, Her smile becomes more and more meaningful. Presumably, when Junshang sees you, he will certainly be very happy. Ingmei glances at Mayan in shock, looking anxious. Opening his mouth, he seems to want to say something. Ruizhu has already supported Shi Lanling, her face full of pride and pride. At least you still have a bit of self-awareness. What are you still standing there for, still not leading the way? Mayan smiles faintly, then turns around and heads in the direction of the dining hall. Ingmei frowns and promptly follows. Shi Lanling glances at Mayan's back, a mocking smile appearing at the bottom of her clear and cold eyes. So what if she's beautiful? In the end, a servant is just a servant. Hearing her name, won't they still obediently give in? Doesn't this mean that Dijun has always treated her differently? Otherwise, how could the servants of the Emperor Garden become so respectful and fawning after hearing her name? Thinking of this, a bashful and expectant smile appears on Shi Lanling's face. The three soon arrive at one of the small courtyards. This is also the place where Di Mingju personally cooked for Mayan that day. Shi Lanling could faintly see the tall and straight figure of the man through the open door of the small courtyard. Even from such a distance, she could feel the man's disdainful aura. Shi Lanling's heart was thumping nonstop. Her cheeks were dyed red. Her eyes, which were usually cold and indifferent, were now filled with passion and infatuation. When Ruizhu sees her miss his expression, she immediately steps forward and pushes Mayan and Ingmei away. Pulling Shi Lanling along, he directly flits past the two people, heading straight towards Di Mingju. In the small courtyard of the dining hall, Di Mingju looks at the table of dishes that are slowly turning cold, his expression frighteningly gloomy. On the side, Han Yi is trembling with fear, wishing that he could immediately make a clean getaway. Unfortunately, he did not dare. What was Little Shadow doing? Why haven't they invited Miss June yet? Don't you know that in order to prepare this meal, Junshang got up early in the morning to get busy? This was because Miss June would only reveal a truly happy smile when she was eating delicious food. Suddenly, Han Yi sees a figure outside the courtyard, and his eyes brighten. Junshang, it's Miss June. Miss June has come. Hearing that, Di Mingju's expression doesn't change. Chapter 352. At the same time, Han Yi also sees Ingmei's tall figure, and his heart unconsciously speeds up. Just as he was about to open his mouth to greet them, he saw Mu Yin and Ingmei being pushed away. Because the action was too sudden, Ingmei staggered a little. On the other hand, Mayan seems to have expected this and leisurely retreats to the side. There's a smile on the corner of his mouth, like he's watching a good show. He watches as Ruizhu supports Shi Lanling, leisurely arriving in front of Di Mingju. My daughter, Shi Lanling, greets the Emperor. A soft and crisp voice rang out. Shi Lanling bowed slightly, her skirt fluttering in the wind. She raised her small face, elegant and refined, with just the right amount of peach blossom blush. She was truly more beautiful than a flower, and her feelings were boundless. Han Yi shivers, goosebumps almost covering the floor. Could this Shi Lanling speak properly? To him, she speaks coldly, and to Junshang, she speaks coquettishly, making him want to vomit. Hearing the voice, Di Mingju retracts his gaze from Mu Yin and falls on the beauty in front of him. Shi Lanling? Whether it was his voice or his gaze, they were so cold that they could freeze someone to death. Shi Lanling's maiden heart was beating wildly because of this handsome man who was so close to her. She didn't notice anything wrong at all. Her smile became more tender and shy, and her voice became sweeter and sweeter. Yes, I am. I'm here today to deliver the golden elixir of 9 orifices to you. When Shi Lanling says these words, she's waiting for Di Mingju to ask in amazement. You actually refined the 9 orifices golden pill. Who knew that Di Mingju wouldn't even spare Shi Lanling a glance, but coldly looks at Han Yi instead. Han Yi is swept by Di Mingju's cold and austere gaze. His legs almost go soft and he kneels down. Then, a voice as cold as Azura's from hell sounded. Go to the purgatory pool and receive your punishment for 5 days. Han Yi suddenly feels his vision darken. The purgatory pool was a place where one would lose a layer of skin. Although the Yinwu continent's Ghost City's purgatory pool only has 1/10 of the power of the polar domain's purgatory pool, but it was still very, very scary. Lord, this subordinate has been wronged. Han Yi couldn't help but wail. This subordinate told her clearly that after the elixir is refined, this subordinate will go and take it myself. Dimingju's voice doesn't rise or fall, but his expression becomes colder. 10 days? Han Yi shudders, no longer daring to quibble. He bows and mournfully says, this subordinate accepts the order. Boo-hoo-hoo, ever since Junshang got to know Miss Mayan, he's become a lot more humane. So much so that he had almost forgotten how cruel and uncompromising Junshang was in the past. Shi Lanling naturally heard the conversation between the two of them. Naturally, she doesn't have a good impression of Han Yi, this guard who has eyes on the top of his head. So what if he was the emperor's trusted aide? She wasn't even a servant, but she was talking to her in such a cold and arrogant manner. But she wants to make a good impression in front of Dimingju. So she immediately takes a step forward, with an anxious and guilty look on her face. Her limpid eyes look at Dimingju. Dijun, please calm your anger. This little girl came uninvited because she was anxious to deliver the elixir to Junshang. This little girl knows that this 9 orifices golden dan is very important to Dijun. If Dijun wants to blame someone, then please blame this little girl. This matter has nothing to do with Han Yi, who knew that before Shi Lanling could finish pleading for leniency, Dimingju doesn't react, but Han Yi has already impatiently interrupted her. Shixinzi, where's the elixir? Chapter 353. Shi Lanling's complexion immediately stiffens. With great difficulty, she manages to maintain a somewhat wronged expression, but it's also stubborn and proud as she looks towards Dimingju. She was waiting for him to say something. However, Dimingju doesn't even spare her a glance. His gaze is firmly fixed on a spot not far from the entrance. The expression on his handsome face becomes more and more gloomy. Han Yi impatiently says, Shixinzi, didn't you say you came to deliver elixirs? What, you're not willing to take it out now that you're here? Don't tell me you haven't refined the golden pill of 9 orifices at all? Shi Lanling clenches her teeth. She simply hates Han Yi to the extreme in her heart. A mere servant actually dared to treat her like this. But Han Ye's words have already reached this point, so Shi Lanling can only take out the brocade box from her bosom. She deliberately avoids Han Yi and steps towards Dimingju. With every step she took, the bashfulness and anticipation on her face deepened. As long as she was a little closer to this man, a little closer, she would personally hand over the 9 orifices golden pill that she had refined. He would definitely have a whole new level of respect for him. However, when Shi Lanling is about a meter away from Dimingju, suddenly, he felt a gust of wind blow past him. Then, the brocade box in her hand disappeared. Han Yi holds the brocade box in his hand, respectfully handing it over to Dimingju. Soon after, he looks at Shi Lanling with a bit of ridicule. I'm sorry, Shixinzi, my family's Junshang doesn't like outsiders to get close to him. Please stand a bit further away, lest you make my family's Junshang unhappy. Shi Lanling's face was so stiff that it looked like it was about to twist. Han Ye's words can be considered pleasant to hear, but that expression and attitude, he was clearly saying, don't get close to Junshang, lest you make Junshang feel disgusted. Shi Lanling, is the only alchemist in the Yinwu continent. When and where has she ever suffered such humiliation? Dimingju takes the brocade box and opens it to take a look. After confirming that the elixir inside has the effect he wants, his expression softens a little. Han Yi immediately smiles and says, Shixinzi, since the elixir has been delivered, you can leave now. This time, Shi Lanling's face really twisted. But soon, she calmed down. Because from beginning to end, Dimingju hasn't said a word. In Shi Lanling's mind, all this disrespect and indifference towards her is nothing more than Han Yi acting on his own initiative. Therefore, she quickly takes the food box from Ruizhu's hands, a gentle and virtuous smile hanging on her face. Dijun, this is the medicinal cuisine that I've personally made for you. The drafts and herbs that I've added are all very valuable. I hope that Dijun doesn't dislike it. As he spoke, the food box was opened. The aroma of food finally filled the air. Because of the addition of special herbs, the aroma of these foods is even more enticing than the breakfast that Dimingju personally made. Mu Yin, who was just leisurely watching the show, couldn't help but sniff and look at the food box. It looks quite delicious. Demingju is simply more familiar with Mayan's little expressions and movements than she is with herself. Seeing this scene, his face immediately turned frighteningly dark. Unfortunately, Ruizhu still adds in a low voice, Junshang, you don't know, but our Mrs. Medicinal Cuisine is famous throughout the entire Yinwu continent. How many people want to ask for a meal, and they spend hundreds of thousands of gold, but our Miss has never agreed. However, Ruizhu did not finish her sentence. Demingju finally couldn't bear it anymore, and he strides in front of Mayan. Grabbing the girl's slender wrist, he pulls her into his arms. How long are you going to stay there? Chapter 354. Her tall nose wrinkled slightly, and her usually sparkling peach blossom eyes were watery. She looked inexplicably pitiful. Demingju's chest warmed up. He wanted to pull her into his arms, but he also felt sorry for her. His hand roughly and clumsily pressed on the tip of his slightly red nose and rubbed it. How could you be so careless? Mu Yan's nose is about to go crooked from anger. This bastard, he was clearly the one who pulled her, causing her to bump into him. And now he was blaming himself for being careless? But without waiting for her to refute, Demingju has already unyieldingly dragged her to the dining table. His voice was still cold, and his expression was still emotionless, but there was a hint of cloying gentleness in his eyes. Do you know what time it is now? It's so late in the morning, and you're still not having breakfast? Do you want to starve to death? Mu Yin looks up at the sky. Jun Shang's ability to lie through his teeth is really getting stronger and stronger. It was only 7 in the morning. So where did the sun come from? Mu Yin touches her nose, sweeping her eyes over Shi Lanling with a smile that isn't a smile. Isn't this because I'm afraid of disturbing you in the beauty's rendezvous? On the side, Shi Lanling looks like she's seen a ghost as she glares at Mayan and Demingju. Wasn't this woman a servant? Wasn't she a servant? Why is the emperor, who treats me so bluntly, treating this woman so differently? Then he looks at Mayan's small hand that Demingju is holding tightly in his palm. Shi Lanling could no longer maintain the tranquility and otherworldliness in her eyes. Intense jealousy and hatred almost turned into flames of jealousy, spurting out from her eyes. She can't even get within 1 meter of Demingju. But how could this woman, this lowly woman, be so close to the emperor? What right does she have? Ruizhu was also dumbfounded. She was only halfway through her words of praise for her young miss, and now she felt awkward. She didn't know if she should continue. Junshang, this medicinal cuisine is really priceless. Others wouldn't be able to get it even if they begged for it. But young miss personally cooked for you and busied herself for an entire night. As soon as these words come out, Demingju and Mu Yan's attention is immediately pulled back. The reason was that Shi Lanling's medicinal cuisine was indeed very fragrant and very famous. In her previous life, Mayan had heard of the rarity and preciousness of Shi Xianzi's medicinal cuisine. Even Gong Qinxue had held it in high esteem, but she didn't have the chance to taste it. She couldn't help but sniffle and look into the food box again. However, just as she stretched her head over, her chin was grabbed by a thick palm. Her attention was forcefully pulled back to the man. Do you really want to eat it? The man asked slowly in a low and cold voice. Mu Yin nodded without hesitation. Shi Lanling and Ruizhu's faces, which had just eased up, suddenly froze again. The corner of Demingju's mouth hooks up into a shallow arc. His appearance was already extremely beautiful, so beautiful that it could take one's breath away. Now that he was smiling like this, he was like the blazing sun, dazzling like fireworks, and could even hook away one's soul. However, Mu Yin is only in a trance for a moment. She heard the man say in a cold and resolute voice, "You're not allowed to eat it." Shi Lanling's originally stiff expression immediately turns joyful, her pair of bright eyes looking towards Demingju. As expected, the celestial emperor could sense his feelings for him. He couldn't possibly allow a lowly servant to taint the medicinal cuisine that he had made with his own hands. But today, it was destined to be the day when Shi Lanling's face would be slapped resoundingly. Chapter 355. The man slightly narrows his eyes and leans closer to Mu Yin, slowly saying, "You're not picky at all. What kind of unclean and unfashionable thing? You dare to eat it?" After a pause, he coldly adds, "Is what Bin Jun personally made not comparable to these?" The man can be said to be somewhat gnashing his teeth as he says the last sentence. Mu Yin is dumbfounded. Wait a minute. Since when did the Yinwu continent's hard-to-find medicinal cuisine become something unclean and unfit for use? And Jun Shangdaran, you could compare with anyone else, but you actually compare cooking skills with a woman? Where's your integrity? It's just that the unhappy Jun Shang has no integrity. He doesn't wait for Mu Yin to react, and directly waves his hand to have the medicinal cuisine brought by Shi Lanling be given to the servants in the Emperor Garden's outer courtyard. He himself forcibly pulls Mu Yin to sit down at the table and carries out the daily feeding work, probably because she's used to being fed by Di Mingju these past few days. Mu Yin eats the delicious breakfast completely without any discomfort. Even in her heart, there's a faint sweet joy that even she herself isn't aware of. As for where that sweet joy comes from, Mu Yin doesn't dare to delve into it. However, Shi Lanling, who has been slapped in the face again and again, can no longer control the shame and indignation that rises from the bottom of her heart. Her whole body can't help but tremble. Since she was born, she has never suffered such humiliation. Who is this woman? Who is she to snatch away her elegance, to snatch away her man? Just a mere servant. What right does she have? Shirshinzi, please go back. The Emperor Garden does not entertain guests. Han Yi indifferently repeats his order to expel the guest. There's already a hint of impatience in his voice. He saw how this woman pushed Little Shadow just now. Humph, what kind of thing is that? Not even fit to carry Miss Jun's shoes. She actually has the nerve to think about their Jun Shang. She's so shameless. Who is she? Shi Lanling doesn't leave, but she forcefully suppresses the surging resentment in her heart, saying one word at a time. Who is this woman? Isn't she a servant of the Emperor Garden? Just a mere servant. How could she? Servant? Han Yi sneers, interrupting Shi Lanling's words. His eyes are filled with ridicule. I'm afraid that Shirshinzi is mistaken. Not only is Miss Jun not a servant, but she is also our Emperor Garden's most distinguished guest, and even the future Empress of the Emperor Garden. If anyone dares to insult young Lady Jun, it is the same as insulting the Emperor Garden and insulting you, Jun Shang. Before Fairy Shi speaks, it would be best for you to think clearly about what you should say and what you should not. Mistress. Shi Lanling's voice suddenly rose, sharp and thin, but she immediately realized her gaffe and forced herself to calm down. Miss Jun, which Miss Jun? How come I've never heard of it? Suddenly, Shi Lanling's voice paused, and her pupils contracted slightly. Could it be that she's the Enchantress of Medicine, Jun Mayan, who's currently in the limelight in Tianyuan City? Wasn't she the legendary music doctor who could bring the dead back to life and snatch lives from the hands of the King of Hell? Han Yi immediately lifts his chin, a proud and smug look on his face. Not bad. Although he already knew that Miss Jun wasn't simple. But he didn't expect that in just a few short days, Miss Jun would not only cause a sensation in Xianlan, but now that she's come to Tianyuan City, she even directly peers through the sky of Tianyuan City. Chapter 356. Shi Lanling's face alternated between green and white. Across the hall, his gaze firmly falls on Mayan's face. His eyes are full of jealousy and unwillingness. It turns out that this woman isn't a servant, but the doctor that she, said was trying to seduce Di Mingju, the Enchantress Mu Yin. Humph, so what if he's a senior doctor? Without knowing how to concoct pills and medicine, no matter how formidable a physician was, he could only treat and save people. Unlike him, whose pills were unparalleled in the world. Not only could it heal, but it could also help martial artists raise their cultivation. What's more, Shi Lanling, was already at the middle heaven stage at such a young age. Regardless of appearance, strength, or status, he would not lose to this woman. Right now, Di Mingju is gentle and protective of her, but it's only because she's beautiful that he treats her as a plaything. How could a plaything be a match for a man as aloof as Di Mingju? One day, Junmayan will be tired of being played with, and she will be discarded. One day, the emperor would realize that only she was the most suitable for him, and only she was worthy of him. What was Junmayan? Could she refine the golden elixir of 9 orifices that the emperor needed the most? Sure Lanling's eyes lit up at the thought of the golden elixir of 9 orifices. Seeing that she won't leave no matter what, Han Yi impatiently steps forward to pull her away. However, Sure Lanling suddenly stepped forward and said in a gentle and concerned voice, "Emperor, Lanling suddenly remembered that I forgot to tell you about the golden elixir of 9 orifices." Just at this time, Dimingju and Mayan have also finished eating. Dimingju personally wipes the corners of Mayan's mouth and hands with a cloth, then he pulls her up. Hearing this, he couldn't help but look at Sure Lanling. Sure Lanling met the man's cold and exquisite eyes, that unparalleled handsome face, and her breathing suddenly became a little hurried. His voice was slightly stuttering as he said, "Emperor, the golden elixir of 9 orifices is extremely potent. Even a Khanate realm martial artist might be injured if he were to consume it. When you consume it, you must be careful. It would be best if Lanling stays by your side. If anything happens, Lanling can help you as an alchemist and doctor." Hearing that, Dimingju raises his brows and releases Mayan's hand. With a flick of his wrist, the brocade box that Sure Lanling had just given him appeared in his palm. When the brocade box was opened, the golden pill of 9 apertures inside faintly emitted a refreshing medicinal fragrance. It was a little like the dark cloud's spirit flowers fragrance, but it seemed to have something more to it. Under everyone's gaze, Dimingju picks up the pill and puts it into his mouth. Sure Lanling's eyes suddenly burst with excitement. Haha, her guess was right. What the emperor really needed was a woman who was useful to him. So what if Junmayan has a charming appearance? Could she concoct pills like him? Would he be able to help her in her breakthrough as a sovereign emperor? How could a good-for-nothing woman compete with him? Sure Lanling thought to herself as she lifted her skirt and walked forward. Han Yi holds out his hand to stop her from approaching. However, Sure Lanling glared at him coldly. "Didn't you see that the emperor has already taken the 9 orifices golden pill? Without me by your side, can you bear the backlash of the golden elixir of 9 orifices?" Han Yi doesn't loosen his grip to let her go. Instead, he looks at her with a fake smile. That smile was indescribably sarcastic. It could even be said that it was pity. Sure Lanling frowned and was about to berate him. Chapter 357. Dimingju puts the 9 orifices golden pill into his mouth, but after a few breaths, suddenly, he grabs Mayan's waist and pulls her into his embrace. Then, he kisses those soft, petal-like lips. Muyan's expression slightly changes, and she is about to struggle. What the hell was this man doing? Acting like a hooligan in public? However, in the next moment, she felt a cool and refreshing aura enter her body through their entwined lips and tongues. Sure Lanling's body stiffened as she stared at the scene in front of her. She was not a fool. She could sense that this was no ordinary kiss. Instead, Dimingju is using himself to remove the domineering cold chi from the 9 orifices golden dan, and then transfer the purified and purest medicinal power to Junmayan. It could be said that the golden elixir of 9 orifices was a rare elixir that was hard to find in the world. However, even if the golden elixir of 9 orifices could be refined, it would still have flaws. However, Dimingju spent countless manpower and resources to cultivate the dark cloud spirit flower and other auxiliary drafts for Mayan. He even offered her a high price to refine the golden elixir of 9 orifices. Now, he was disregarding any possible damage to his body as he dispelled the cold aura of the pill. Just to let Mayan absorb the power of the 9 apertures golden dan? Why? Why did this man have to go through so much trouble for a lowly servant? Why didn't Dimingju waste his thoughts on her? How is Junmayan stronger than her? On the side, Han Yi looks at Sure Lanling's unsightly complexion, and he's in a very good mood. However, on the surface, he was still all smiles as he said, "Sure Xinzi, look at my family's Jun Shang and my future wife. They're so affectionate as if there's no one else around. But it's not good for an outsider to watch from the side. Fairy Sure, please." This is the third time that Han Yi has asked the guest to leave. This time, Shi Lanling and Rui Zhu had no reason to stay. Shi Lanling couldn't even stay a minute longer. The scene in front of her made her so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. Under Han Ye's guidance, she left the Emperor Garden like a walking corpse. If one were to say how shy and expectant she had been when she had first arrived, then when she left, she would be so ashamed and jealous. Then, this jealousy slowly turned into bone-deep resentment. If it weren't for Jun Mayan, Di Jun would certainly have a whole new level of respect for her. If it weren't for Jun Mayan, she wouldn't have suffered such humiliation today. Isn't he just a third-rate physician? He actually wanted to compete with her. He was simply daydreaming. Shi Lanling's elegant face slowly twisted into a sinister and vicious expression. However, it only lasted for an instant before it dissipated completely, returning to its prideful state. On the other side, Han Yi very cleverly cleans up everyone present. The medicinal power of the 9 orifices golden elixir was purified little by little and passed into Mu Yan's body. After about a quarter of an hour, the effects of the medicine have completely passed through Mu Yan's body. Mu Yan feels that there's a melting heat rolling in her dantian. She reaches out, wanting to push Di Mingju away. Unexpectedly, the man hugged her even tighter and kissed her even deeper. Only when the skin all over Mu Yan's body starts to heat up, does Di Mingju reluctantly release the red and swollen lips that he kissed. Mayan fiercely glares at this shameless man. Was this bastard giving her medicine, or taking advantage of her? It's just that Mayan doesn't know that not only does her blushing cheeks and coquettish glare not have any lethality, but it's also indescribably seductive. Chapter 358. He says in a cold voice, "If you don't sit cross-legged and circulate, the medicinal power of the 9 orifices golden dan will be wasted in vain." That tone is full of indulgence and tolerance, as if the one who was being unreasonable just now was Mu Yan. Mu Yan also feels the alternating hot and cold forces in her qi. She promptly sits down cross-legged. The mysterious energy within her body runs wildly, flowing through her limbs and bones. As the mysterious energy around Mu Yan increases, it becomes stronger and stronger. Melodious music faintly drifts through the air. Di Mingju raises his eyebrows. His always cold and unperturbed eyes reveal a touch of astonishment. Because when the music is ringing in his ears, he actually feels that the power within his body, so powerful that even he himself can't control, is faintly resonating. However, how is this possible? As he's bewildered, the sound of the zither becomes louder and louder, then gradually disappears. Mu Yan slowly opens her eyes from sitting cross-legged. There's no change in her expression or appearance. Even the powerful internal force around her is completely restrained. But those pair of shimmering and exquisite peach blossom eyes, when they open, are frighteningly bright. Like the most magnificent treasure that was originally covered with a thin layer of dust. But now that the dust has been washed away, it reveals a bright splendor. Di Mingju looks at Mu Yan with a frighteningly hot gaze. His girl had always been alluring and radiant. Now, it makes people even more unable to move their eyes away. Di Mingju wishes he could hide her, so that only he can see and touch her. Mu Yan takes a deep breath and stands up from the ground, a faint smile on her face. The bottleneck that has shackled her for so long has finally been broken. Her cultivation has now reached the high pre-celestial level. In the entire Yinwu continent, it could be said that she has rarely met her match. And all of this is thanks to Di Mingju. Forcing her to stay here to plant the Dark Cloud Spirit Flower is for her sake. Giving the Dark Cloud Spirit Flower to Shi Lanling to refine pills is also for her sake. Looking up at the man's dazzlingly handsome face, Mu Yan says softly, "Di Mingju, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. How can I, Jun Mu Yan, make you pay so much for me?" Di Mingju steps forward, wrapping his arms around Mayan's waist. Leaning forward, he slowly says, "Are you very touched by what Bin Jun has done for you?" Without waiting for Mu Yan to react, he continued, "Since you're so touched, then devote your life to me." Mu Yan, hee, being touched is just a fleeting cloud. "Miss, are we leaving just like that?" Let that woman seduce the emperor? Inside the emperor garden, Rue Zhu was suppressed by Di Mingju's powerful aura to the point where she couldn't even speak properly. As soon as she left the emperor garden, she couldn't help feeling jealous and annoyed. What does that Jun Mayan count for? Isn't she just a newly rising third-rate doctor? How could he compare to her young miss? If the person favored by the emperor was her young miss, then she would naturally be able to stay by her young miss' side and look at that man's godlike appearance every day. Thinking of this, Rue Zhu's cheeks became a little red, and a misty look appeared in her eyes. Shi Lanling looked at her coldly and was about to open her mouth to curse. Suddenly, a white light flashed. Rue Zhu and Shi Lanling screamed in unison. Shi Lanling felt a sharp pain on her left cheek, and her shoulder was hit by a heavy force. She staggered 2 steps, and with great difficulty, she stood firm. She touched her face with her hand. Chapter 359. Rue Zhu looked up and saw a snow-white fat rabbit somersaulting in the air before falling to the ground. On its furry face, a pair of small mung bean eyes stared coldly at Shi Lanling. Obviously, it was just a harmless little animal, but being stared at by such a pair of eyes gave her an inexplicable creepy feeling. Shi, what happened? The movement here attracted the guards at the entrance of the Emperor Garden. When he saw the wound on Shi Lanling's face, the leader of the guards exclaimed, "Shi, your face." Shi Lanling's white left cheek was scratched 3 times. Although these 3 cuts were not deep, they were still bloody, extending from her temples to her lips. This caused Shi Lanling's originally elegant and refined face to become somewhat sinister. Shi Lanling took a deep breath and slowly calmed her emotions. She pointed to the fat rabbit and said, "Catch that beast for me." The guards were stunned. They heard Rue Zhu shout from the side, "It's that beast that scratched my family's young lady's face. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and catch it." This time, the guards no longer hesitated and directly rushed towards the fat rabbit. They did not know what happened in the Emperor Garden's inner courtyard. They thought that Shi Lanling was really an important guest of the Emperor. Now that Shi was injured at the entrance of the Emperor Garden, if they did not help, they would not be able to bear the consequences if the Emperor blamed them. The fat rabbit saw more than a dozen fierce people rushing over. Making a prompt decision, it twisted its buttocks, turned around, and jumped. Its fat body drew a round arc in the air and eventually fell into a small embrace. It turned its head in the small embrace. The fat rabbit glanced at the people rushing over with disdain. It was now a rabbit with the support of its young master. These people wanted to bully it? No way. Bah. It was not a rabbit. The fat rabbit rolled its eyes helplessly. It must have followed the female devil for too long. It had almost forgotten that its real body was not a stupid rabbit, but the guards did not expect that they would work together to catch a rabbit, but they still failed to catch it. Their eyes all looked in the direction the fat rabbit had jumped. Then they all froze. They saw that the one holding the rabbit was a little boy about 4 or 5 years old. It was just that this little boy was too handsome. He was like a fairy that had fallen into the mortal world, making people want to give him all the best treasures in the world. However, when the guards met the little boy's eyes, they shuddered inexplicably. His ice-blue eyes seemed to be frozen with frost, cold and disdainful. He was clearly so young, but he made people want to submit to him. The person standing closest to Junshang even has a strange feeling of being stared at by Junshang. Young master, please hand over the rabbit in your hand." The guards finally managed to recover from their shock, but still spoke with some trepidation. "This rabbit injured my Emperor Garden's honored guest. We need to give our honored guest an explanation." Xiaobao looked up at the guard who had spoken, then shifted his gaze to Shi Lanling's face. The 3 scars left by the fat rabbit were very obvious and bloody. The fat rabbit also looked over and was very satisfied when he saw his masterpiece. Its short tail wagged, and its little green bean eyes sparkled. Humph! It smelled that the woman had the same disgusting smell as the bad woman who destroyed the dark cloud's spiritual flower. Chapter 360. Perhaps she was the mist that the bad woman mentioned. Although the fat rabbit was afraid of the female devil, The female devil was the little master's mother after all and the little master's favorite person. How could he be bullied so easily? Therefore, when it saw Lanling today, it immediately pounced on her. It wanted to avenge the she-devil first. Anyway, with its little master around, it was not afraid of anything. Xiaobao lowered his head and looked at the smug fat rabbit. She slapped its chubby butt with her little hand. Xiaobao was a good child. Niang Qin said that if you did something wrong, you should apologize. Although the one who scratched him was the fat rabbit, who asked the fat rabbit to be his pet. Niang Qin said that since he raised a pet, he had joint responsibility. Therefore, after Xiaobao hit the fat rabbit, he grabbed its neck and walked in front of Lanling. Sorry, my pet hurt you. I can give you a bottle of medicine, I promise, she said in a childish voice. Do you think a bottle of potion is enough for you to hurt my young lady? Ruizhu shouted in disbelief. If you know what's good for you, then quickly hand over the little bastard in your hand. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. Lanling, on the other hand, did not make a fuss like Ruizhu, but her eyes were also very cold. His gaze that seemed to be dipped in poison landed on the fat rabbit's body, wishing that he could immediately skin it and tear its bones apart. Little Gongzi, you are young and insensible. I can forgive you for letting your pet hurt me, but since this pet hurt me, I have to deal with it. Xiaobao frowned and looked up at Lanling. Auntie, how do you want to deal with this? Auntie? What did you call me? Lanling's voice rose uncontrollably. She simply couldn't believe her ears. Xiaobao raised his eyebrows, but his expression remained cold. Auntie, is there a problem? Xiaobao remembers his mother's words very well. Mother said that when you see a beautiful girl, you should call her big sister. If he saw a beautiful girl older than his mother, he would call her auntie. The two women in front of her were older than her mother. They weren't beautiful, and the aura they exuded made people dislike them, just like those talkative aunties that the people of the ink camp hate the most. So, calling this woman in front of him auntie was not a problem at all. Lanling took a deep breath, then another deep breath. He told himself over and over again not to bother with the child. However, the anger in her eyes had already made her unable to maintain her lofty and aloof fairy appearance. Xiaobao saw that Lanling did not speak. He felt that he should express the sincerity of his apology. Therefore, he took out a bottle of medicine and handed it to Lanling. This bottle of medicine is also refined by Mayan. If it was placed in the Ghost City or Junji drugstore, it could be sold for a sky-high price. Xiaobao now gave it to Lanling for free, thinking that the sincerity of his apology was enough. Lanling took the medicine but didn't apply it on the wound. Instead, she looked at it with disdain, raised her hand, and smashed the porcelain vase onto the ground. Ruizhu sneers. Do you know that my family's miss is the best alchemist and alchemist in the Yinwu continent? You want to appease my miss anger with a mere draft? Kid, are you dreaming? Lanling's expression was cold and arrogant. She looked down at Xiaobao from above. I'll say it again. Hand over the animal in your hand, and I won't bother with you. Chapter 361. The already cold little face becomes even colder. That pair of clear eyes also recedes all the warmth, just like an icy abyss. All the drafts on Xiaobao's body were painstakingly refined by Niang Qin. Because she was afraid that he would get hurt, she always carried a lot of them with her. However, Xiaobao is usually reluctant to use them, because he doesn't want his Niang Qin to refine another bottle. However, this woman actually smashed the drafts that Niang Qin refined. The fat rabbit seems to feel its little master's anger, and it lets out a beast-like howl. All the white hair on its body stands up, itching to rush out at once. Xiaobao suppresses his anger, holding the fat rabbit in his arms, and coldly says, "What if I don't hand it over?" Lanling was startled when she met his cold eyes. There's a faint fear growing in her heart. But then, her complexion becomes very unsightly. A 4- or 5-year-old child actually scared her. That kind of shame reminds her of the humiliation she just received in the Emperor Garden. Moreover, looking at it now, she feels that this child looks a bit similar to Jun Mayan. This makes Lanling more and more disgusted, and she even has a faint murderous intent. You. Sher Lonling turns to the Emperor Garden's guards and says, "Capture that beast for me, dead or alive." The guards look at each other, somewhat hesitant for a while. After all, that's a 4 or 5-year-old child. They are a group of grown men, and they want to make a move on a child? Sher Lanling's face immediately sinks. You want to disobey my Sher Lanling's orders? Rue Zhu also chimes in. Don't forget, my family's miss was injured at the entrance of the Emperor Garden, right under your noses. If you don't give an explanation today, not to mention Dijun not sparing you, there will no longer be a place for you in the Ghost City. Hearing Rue Zhu's words, the guards' faces immediately change. They all know how high Sher Lanling's status is in the Ghost City, and for them, being guards of the Emperor Garden is only temporary. In the end, they will have to go back to the Ghost City to make a living. If they offend Sher Xinzi, then they really won't be able to bear the consequences in the future. Thinking of this, the guards no longer hesitate and directly rush towards Xiao Bao. He had thought that a 4 or 5-year-old child would panic or even cry in the face of such a sudden change. However, Little Treasure's expression didn't change from beginning to end. He just raised his hand and threw the fat rabbit to the side. He even had the time to coldly warn, "If you cause any more trouble, I'll turn you into stir-fried rabbit meat." Nyang Qin has always been thinking about it. The fat rabbit shrank its neck and curled itself into a ball. He had a pitiful look that said, "I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again." The guard's eyes lit up when he saw Xiao Bao throw away the fat rabbit. If he didn't attack the child and directly handed the rabbit over to Sher Xinzi, then everyone would be happy. At the thought of this, one of them pounced at the fat rabbit like a bolt of lightning. The rabbit lying on the ground was motionless, like a furry ball. The guard was about to grab the spear. Suddenly, a powerful Xian Qi surrounded his body. Then, before he could react, he felt a sharp pain in his lower body. He immediately let out a miserable howl like a pig being butchered, and his whole body was ejected like a cannonball. He flew straight for more than 10 meters before landing on the ground. He clutched his crotch, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf, unable to get up again. Chapter 362. His icy blue eyes didn't waver in the slightest, coldly sweeping over everyone. The other guards suddenly felt their balls tighten, clamping their legs. After a cup of tea's worth of time, all the guards in the Emperor Garden's outer courtyard were prostrating on the ground, screaming like pigs being butchered. Only Xiao Bao still stood there with an indifferent expression, his handsome little face devoid of any expression, his clothes without a single wrinkle. It was as if the person who had just knocked down 7 or 8 high-level martial artists wasn't him. The fat rabbit happily wagged its short tail and jumped into Xiao Bao's arms. Its mouth issued a flattering whine. "Little Master is the best. Long live Little Master. I want to follow Little Master for a lifetime. Hug Little Master's thigh and never waver." Sher Lanling stared dumbfounded at the scene in front of her, almost unable to believe her eyes. A child of only 4 or 5 years old actually knocked down the Emperor Garden's guards. And each one of these guards is an elite of the Ghost City. Each one of them can become an outstanding and famous expert in the outside world. However, these people were knocked down by a 4-year-old milk baby. Moreover, they were knocked down without any ability to resist. This milk baby, who the hell is he? Rue Zhu was horrified, looking at Xiao Bao, then at the wailing guard on the ground. "Miss, this," Sher Lanling took another deep breath, pushed away the flustered Rue Zhu, and walked towards Xiao Bao step by step. Her face had regained its usual arrogance and indifference, aloof, like a fairy. But the hideous scar on her face destroyed her temperament. It made her whole person look gloomy. Sher Lanling walked in front of Xiao Bao, condescendingly looking at him and the rabbit in his arms. "I didn't want to attack a child, but you forced me." She paused. "I'll give you one last chance. Give me the animal in your arms, and I'll spare your life." Spare his life? But the death penalty can be avoided, but the punishment cannot be forgiven. Sher Lanling was becoming more and more displeased with this little boy, more and more disgusted. Therefore, she would never let him off easily today. The corner of Xiao Bao's mouth gently hooked up, his handsome little face revealing a cold and sarcastic smile. Auntie, you talk too much. If you want to fight, just fight. Why are you so long-winded? Shi Lanling's complexion turned pale. She looked at Xiao Bao with a gaze as cold and malevolent as a viper's. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Although Xiao Bao had defeated the guards in the Emperor Garden's outer court, Shi Lanling never felt she would lose. She was a heaven-rank expert. He didn't make a move because he didn't want to lower himself to argue with a little kid. But this little boy in front of her was simply too disgusting. Today, she would let him have a taste of the consequences of offending her. Shi Lanling struck out with her palm, and a powerful dark force circulated in the air. Strands of strange bluish-green light shrouded the space between his fingers. If a knowledgeable person saw this scene, they would definitely be terrified. Because Shi Lanling had not only used 90% of her Xian energy in this palm strike, but she had also mixed the deadly poison, white jade purple frost powder, into the palm qi. This kind of poison would not kill the person immediately, and it would not kill them immediately. However, it could destroy a person's meridians and qi, causing them to suffer and finally walk towards death and pain. At this moment, Shi Lanling even forgot that she had to deal with the rabbit that injured her face. He only wanted Xiao Bao to pay a painful price. Chapter 363. Oh woo! The fat rabbit felt the horror of the white jade purple frost, and all its hair stood on end. It desperately cried out, hoping that the little master would quickly escape. But Xiao Bao's expression was still so cold, as if he didn't know that danger had arrived. The little white and tender palm pushed out, and all the profound energy in his body gathered in the palm. Shi Lanling's eyes revealed a cold smile. In her eyes, the annoying child in front of her has already become a corpse. Bang! An earth-shattering collision of profound energy, mixed with a hurricane-like airwave, swept the area of 10 meters around the entrance of the Emperor Garden. Shi Lanling's whole body flew back several meters, and it took her a lot of effort to stand still. But she only felt the blood in her body churning, and the blood almost rushed to her throat. Her eyes widened, looking at the little boy who also retreated, but only a few steps back. Her eyes were filled with horror. She was a dignified high-rank heaven stage ancient martial artist. In the collision of profound energy, she actually lost to a 4-year-old child. How is this possible? How is this possible? But immediately, Shi Lanling calmed down. The horror on her face turned into ridicule and resentful pity. I don't know what method you used to fight evenly with me with profound energy, but you are destined to pay the price for offending me today. Shi Lanling slowly said, the resentment and coldness in her eyes completely unconcealed at this moment. I will also find out your family background and make your parents pay the same price. I want you to know that offending me, Shi Lanling, is an unwise choice. And all this is because your parents didn't teach you well. Xiao Bao's originally cold face finally showed a trace of anger. This woman is really hateful. Xiao Bao could tolerate anything she said to him. After all, it was the little rabbit who did wrong first. But this annoying old woman first broke the elixir that his mother had painstakingly refined. Now she said that she would make a move against his mother. This Xiao Bao absolutely would not allow it. The clear blue eyes, like the sky, turned into a cold and ruthless ice blue. Xiao Bao slowly raised his hand, his eyes full of decisive killing intent. He knew that the woman in front of him had the same cultivation base as him, mid-rank heaven stage. But it was far longer than him advancing to mid-rank heaven stage. However, Xiao Bao was not afraid of her at all. It just so happened that he also wanted to try and see just how powerful the cultivation method taught by that lecher was. Her fair and tender palms slowly formed a seal in front of her chest. The Xian Qi of heaven and earth was slowly stirred by the movement of his fingers. A terrifying power gradually took shape around Little Treasure. However, at that moment, the Emperor Garden's gates suddenly opened. A cry of surprise came from inside the door. Xiao Bao? Xiao Bao suddenly turned around and saw a beautiful figure walking out of the courtyard. What Shi Lanling? What anger? He couldn't care less. Her small body soared up like a bird, and she threw herself into the arms of the person who had just arrived. Mother! Xiao Bao's voice was very high, and even slightly hoarse and trembling. After throwing himself into Mayan's embrace, he hugs her neck even more tightly, unwilling to let go even in death. Mu Yin also held Xiao Bao tightly in her arms. Smelling the cool and milky fragrance that had yet to recede from Xiao Bao's body, the rims of her eyes immediately became wet. Ever since her baby was born, they had never been apart for a single day. This time, they hadn't seen each other for 7 whole days. Chapter 364. Unfortunately, her heart is aching and full of pity, so much so that she opens her mouth for a long time, but can't say a word. Nyang Qin, I miss you so much. Xiao Bao rubs Mu Yan's neck with all his might and sniffles, forcing himself not to let the tears come out. That lecture said that he's already a man, he can't cry, and he can't let his mother worry. Mu Yan's voice is hoarse. Nyang Qin also misses you so much. Dimingju, who had come out with Mu Yin, coldly snorts when he sees this scene. It's like a sea of vinegar has turned over in his heart. This heartless woman, she hasn't seen him for a month, and she doesn't even miss him. She's almost completely forgotten about him. Now, she hasn't seen her son for 7 days, and she's already revealing her true feelings. Humph. One day, he will make this big and small one day without him feel like 3 autumns. Seeing that he's going on a long journey, she hugs him and cries, not letting him leave. Mu Yin slowly comes back to her senses with great difficulty and gently touches her son's little face. She only feels that her son has lost weight in 7 days. Her heart is even more distressed. Xiao Bao, how did you get here? How have you been these days? As Mu Yin speaks, she examines Xiao Bao's body. Suddenly, she frowns, and her expression becomes incomparably cold. This is the white jade purple frost powder. How could you be contaminated with such a sinister drug? Xiao Bao immediately flattens his mouth and looks at Shi Lanling. His voice is still cold, but with a bit of grievance. Nyang Qin, they bullied me. In fact, Xiao Bao doesn't feel wronged at all, because these people are no match for him, and he simply doesn't put them in his eyes. But Xiao Bao hasn't seen Mu Yin for too long, and he really misses his mother. He misses his mother caring for him, hugging him, kissing him, misses his mother protecting him all the time, supporting him. So when he sees Mu Yin, he can't help but want to act spoiled. The corners of Mu Yan's mouth slowly hooks up into a shallow arc. Her originally bright and beautiful appearance instantly becomes even more charming and moving. But the people who are swept by her gaze can't help but shiver. It's you, bullying my son? The guards, who have been beaten up, have just stood up from the ground. When they meet Mu Yan's gaze, they are all drenched in cold sweat. He even felt like crying. They were the ones being bullied. Han Yi comes out from behind Dimingju. He first greets Xiao Bao. Greetings, little Gongzi. He then turned to the Emperor Garden's guards and asked in a cold voice, What the hell happened? Have you eaten a bear's heart or a leopard's gall? How dare you attack little master? Hearing Han Ye's words, the guards simultaneously look like they've been struck by lightning, each and every one of them dumbfounded. What? Young master? Could it be that this extraordinarily beautiful little boy was the emperor's child? Everyone's line of sight turns towards Mayan, Dimingju, and Xiao Bao. What he saw was incredible. Xiao Bao's facial features resemble Mayan. However, that pair of blue eyes seemed to be carved from the same mold as the emperor. When the 3 of them stood together, they looked like a harmonious and beautiful family. Moreover, how could a 4-year-old child be so powerful? A single person was able to take down a large group of strong men? Because that was their young master, the son of their most terrifying emperor. This time, not only did the guards want to cry, but they also wanted to kill themselves. Chapter 365. At this time, regret is really like a torrential river, flowing without end. Unfortunately, it's too late for regrets. After Han Yi listens to the guard's narration of the whole process, he turns to look at Xiao Bao. His cold and stern face is immediately filled with a smile. Little master, how do you think these people who offended their superiors should be dealt with? Although Xiao Bao is the child of Miss Mayan and her ex-husband, Han Yi knows that in order to pursue Miss Mayan, Jun Shang has long regarded Xiao Bao as his own son, even cultivating him as the successor of the polar domain. Moreover, he doesn't know why, but Han Yi always feels that Xiao Bao and his Jun Shang are very similar in terms of aura. If he wants to serve Xiao Bao as his master in the future, he doesn't have the slightest psychological pressure. Therefore, he doesn't even ask Jun Shang about the matter of dealing with the guards, but directly asks for Xiao Bao's opinion. Sure enough, Jun Shang doesn't object at all. He even condescends to throw him a look of appreciation, making Han Yi almost feel overwhelmed by the favor, suspecting that he's seeing things. Xiao Bao hugs Mayan's neck, looking at Di Mingju, then back at Mayan. He sees Mayan looking at him with a smile, without any intention of stopping him. He blinks his big watery eyes and says with a straight face, "Do they get a salary?" Han Yi stares blankly, not understanding Xiao Bao's train of thought for a moment. He blankly nods, of course. The servants of the Emperor Garden, they don't just have a salary, their treatment is simply heaven-defying. Xiao Bao nods in all seriousness. Each person will be penalized with a year's salary, and have it delivered to the Junji Medical Center within 3 days. That's it? The guards have an incredulous look on their faces. No whipping, no crippling of their cultivation, not even losing their position in the Emperor Garden? Xiao Bao disdainfully glances at them. You think it's not enough? It's enough, it's enough. The guards are overjoyed, and they fall to their knees. Many thanks for the little master's forgiveness. Within 3 days, we will certainly deliver all the salary. It's just a year's salary. It doesn't matter even if it's 3 times. Xiao Bao turns to look at Mayan, his big eyes bright. Nyangqin, all the salary is for you. Do you like it? Mayan smiles until her eyebrows are curved, unspeakably gentle. Thank you, baby. Nyangqin likes it very much. A faint smile appeared on Xiao Bao's cold face. Her cheeks were rosy, and she looked indescribably cute. Han Yi silently glances at the cold-faced Jun Shang. He couldn't help but wail in his heart. Miss Jun, young master, what kind of salary do you want? Isn't this salary given by our Jun Shang? As long as you bind our Jun Shang, the rare treasures under the heavens will be yours to pick. The guards who had escaped punishment climbed up from the ground in joy. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he stole a glance at Shi Lanling, lowered his voice, and repeated what Shi Lanling had just said. When she finds out that it was Shi Lanling who infected Xiao Bao with the white jade purple frost powder, Mayan's expression suddenly turns frighteningly cold. This woman actually wanted to kill Xiao Bao. If it weren't for Xiao Bao's special physique, the poisons of the Yanwu continent could do nothing to him. Perhaps by now, Xiao Bao would already be seriously injured. As soon as she thinks that Xiao Bao will be hurt, Mu Yin can't control the violent killing intent boiling within her. However, without waiting for Mayan to react, Di Mingju is already slowly walking towards Shi Lanling. Shi Lanling's entire person is lifeless. Even if she were to die, she wouldn't believe that Di Mingju and Mayan already had an illicit relationship and even had a bastard child. Chapter 366. What's more, the intimate scene of the 3 people just now really stings her eyes, and it also stings her heart. At this time, she sees Di Mingju walking towards her step by step. Shi Lanling's eyes can't help but redden, tears rolling down. Di Jun, you. Before she could finish speaking, Di Mingju has already interrupted her. Did you just say that Bin Jun didn't teach my son well? You still want Bin Jun to pay the price? Di Mingju's expression is very cold and indifferent. It could even be said to be indifferent. It's as if he simply doesn't care about anything in this world. And a mere Yanwu continent, he really doesn't need to pay attention to it. But it's this kind of indifference, that gaze that's like looking at an ant, that makes Shi Lanling's affection turn into fear in an instant. She opens her mouth, her voice trembling. Di Jun, I didn't know that was your. Once again, her voice hasn't fallen. Di Mingju doesn't even move his hand, but Shi Lanling screams. Her whole body soars into the air and falls to the ground. When she raises her head, everyone sees that her cheeks are swollen up. Coupled with the scar left by the rabbit, Her originally elegant appearance suddenly becomes too horrible to look at. Deming-ju condescendingly looks at her, his expression carrying a hint of ridicule. Bin-jun's son. Is he someone that you are qualified to teach a lesson? Lanling covers her red and swollen face, her eyes filled with disbelief, fear, grief, and indignation. She sees that Deming-ju is about to make his move again. She couldn't bear it anymore, crying and shouting, Junmayan, don't go too far. It was clearly you who first instructed that animal to ruin my face. I just wanted to punish that animal, but your son refused and even spoke ill of me. What's wrong with me teaching him a lesson? Hearing that, Mayan glances at the fat rabbit. The fat rabbit shivers a bit, then it jumps away and disappears. Actually, it has entered the space. It also knows that it has done something wrong. Although it doesn't regret it, it's also extremely afraid that the female devil will turn it into stir-fried rabbit meat. Xiao Bao slightly flattens his mouth, his voice gloomy. Nyang Qin, I apologized to Bunny and also gave her the medicine that Nyang Qin refined. But not only did this woman not want it, she even smashed the bottle. Xiao Bao didn't continue, but Mu Yin looked at the broken porcelain vase at the door and the lingering medicinal fragrance in the air, and she knew what had happened. Mu Yin kissed Xiao Bao's face and said softly, Xiao Bao did the right thing. If you do something wrong, you have to apologize. But if you're bullied, you can't not retaliate. Hearing this, little Bao's dim blue eyes lit up. Mayan's line of sight turns and falls on Lanling. The corner of her mouth holds a faint and cold smile. Xianzi, I'm very sorry that my spiritual pet hurt you. But don't you think you've gone too far by trying to kill my son with the white jade violet frost powder? Hearing the words, white jade purple frost, the faces of those guards and Han Yi change. This is a famous sinister medicine in the Yinwu continent. It could torture people for a long time before they walked towards death and despair. Lanling was called a fairy, but she used such a sinister thing to deal with a child? This is going too far. Lanling's expression changes greatly. She didn't expect that Junmayan would actually recognize the white jade purple frost powder at a glance, especially when she comes into contact with Deming-ju's cold and murderous gaze. She shudders all over, but she quickly forces herself to calm down. Chapter 367. Saying that, Lanling looks at Mayan, her eyes sincere. Miss June is also a woman, so surely you know how important appearance is to a woman. If you were the one who got your face hurt, would you not be angry? But I was just angry for a moment and wanted to punish your young master. I definitely had no intention of killing him. Mu Yan's brows lightly raised, full of ridicule. Use the white jade purple frost powder as a small punishment to warn others. That's right. The white jade purple frost powder is highly toxic, but I am an alchemist as well as an alchemist. Lanling shows a contemptuous and proud expression. When it comes to alchemy, I believe that there aren't many in the entire Yinwu continent who are better than me. After punishing the young master, I can naturally help him detoxify the poison of a mere white jade purple frost. Pausing, she looks at Deming-ju and says, This is also the reason why I don't dare to use the draft that the little Gongzi gave me. Although Miss June is the newly famous enchantress of medicine, when it comes to refining pills, I'm afraid she's still far from my level. Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked me to refine the golden pill of 9 orifices for you. After saying this, Lanling sneers at the change in Mayan's expression. This kind of reminder is blatantly telling Mayan that she is far stronger than her in terms of alchemy and alchemy. So what if she hooked up with the emperor and gave birth to a bastard? When she was in the Ghost City, she didn't hear the news of Jun getting married. Han Yi also said that Junmayan was only the future mistress of the Emperor Garden. In other words, Deming-ju was only temporarily bewitched by this woman. As long as Junmayan and her son were eradicated, the position of Emperor Garden's mistress would still be hers. Lanling's innate talent had been awe-inspiring since she was young, and her schemes were deep. If he knew what he wanted, he would get it even if he had to resort to any means necessary. Therefore, even though she was in a sorry state, her heart was filled with hatred. However, she also immediately adjusted her state, trying in vain to firmly suppress Mayan. making Dimingju realize that she is the most suitable mistress of the Emperor Garden. Shi Lanling's words really make Mu Yin very unhappy, because there was one sentence that Shi Lanling was right. She did not know how to concoct pills, and Dimingju wants to refine the 9 orifices golden pill for her, but he has to find Shi Lanling. The dark cloud spirit flowers that she had painstakingly cultivated were all given to this woman. Everything made her feel as disgusted as if she had swallowed a fly. Shi Lanling sees the change in Mayan's expression, and a ruthless complacency flashes through her eyes. I came here today to deliver the golden elixir of 9 orifices to you, Miss June. Who would have thought that she would encounter such an undeserved calamity and be disfigured? Although I can refine drafts to heal wounds, it would take at least 3 months for it to completely heal. She didn't finish her sentence, but the grievance and sadness in her words were clear. Those who didn't understand the cause and effect might really think that she was an innocent victim. Dimingju feels Mayan's anger, and a murderous intent flashes through his eyes. He doesn't pay attention to Shi Lanling because in the entire Yinwu continent, besides Mu Yin and Xiao Bao, everyone else is like a stone or an ant to him. He simply doesn't need to pay attention to them, nor does he need to bother about them. But this woman actually attacked Xiao Bao, and even made Mu Yin unhappy. Then she might as well just die. However, Mayan suddenly pulls on his sleeve, and directly puts Xiao Bao into his arms. Chapter 368. One big and one small. The two of them look at each other in dismay, their expressions and movements unspeakably strange. At the side, Han Yi is even more dumbfounded. Junsheng is actually holding a child. That's a real hug. Not carrying. But Mayan has already slowly walked in front of Shi Lanling. The corners of her mouth are slightly raised, her peach blossom eyes shimmering like water, like the clear radiance of the crescent moon. The snow-covered flowers and trees, so beautiful that it's suffocating. Shi Lanling's complexion suddenly freezes, her eyes shooting out a thick sense of jealousy. At this moment, she really wishes that she could scratch Mayan's face. Or put this face on her own body. Sure, Shinzi, you just said that it would take at least 3 months for the wound on your face to heal? Mayan doesn't seem to see the viciousness in Shi Lanling's eyes as she leisurely says, but unfortunately, I just refined a kind of draft a few days ago. It would only take 1/4 of an hour to heal after applying it on the wound. If the wound isn't deep, even the scar would disappear in 3 days at most. Hearing that, Shi Lanling couldn't help but sneer. Miss June, you're not dreaming, are you? I've been refining elixirs for so many years, but I've never heard of a draft that can heal a person's wound in 1/4 of an hour. Even if you want to brag about your abilities in front of Di June, you don't have to lie through your teeth, right? Saying that, she even glances at Dimingju. Unfortunately, Dimingju is clumsily adjusting his posture while holding Xiao Bao. He doesn't even spare her a glance. Shi Lanling grits her teeth, raising her voice once again. Miss June, you said that this draft can heal my wound in 1/4 of an hour, but what if it can't? What if my injury worsens instead? At that time, could it be that I have to bear the pain of being disfigured with just a light apology from you? Mayan chuckles and says, if it can't be done, sure Shinzi can also make the same 3 cuts on my face. What do you think? Hearing this promise, Shi Lanling's eyes brighten at once. This is June Mayan bringing about her own destruction. When the time comes, even if she disfigured her face, she can't be blamed. All right, then I'll try Miss June's draft and see how miraculous it is. Shi Lanling doesn't believe that there's really a draft in this world that can heal her wound in 1/4 of an hour. Even if she were to refine the most expensive elixir and then pair it with a draft for external application, it would still take at least 10 days. 15 minutes? Haha. Doesn't that mean that her wounds are healing at a speed visible to the naked eye? She wants to see how June Mayan will still have the face to seduce Dimingju if she can't do it in a moment, and how will she face her disfigured self? Imagining such a comfortable future, Shi Lanling doesn't hesitate to take the draft that Mayan hands over. Without thinking, he smeared it on his wound. Because she was too excited and expectant, she didn't even notice that there were wisps of blue-green light twining around the bottle. White jade purple frost. The corner of Mayan's mouth hooks up into a faint and cold smile, and then slowly disappears. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. She would treat the wound caused by the fat rabbit's claw. She would naturally return the white jade purple frost that this woman wanted to use on Xiaobao. Didn't Shi Lanling say that she could casually solve a mere white jade purple frost? Hee, then she would try to solve it. Chapter 369. Now, she didn't even feel that her swollen cheeks and bloody wounds were scary. Because after a while, a wound 10 times uglier than this one will be replicated on Mayan's face. However, a moment later, Shi Lanling suddenly felt that the wound on her face was a little itchy. She furrowed her brows and managed to stop herself from scratching it with her hands. However, that itch is getting worse and worse, making Shi Lanling almost suspect that Jun Mayan is deliberately harming her. Just when she could no longer resist the urge to scratch, Jun Mayan's unhurried voice floats into her ears, "Shixianzi, the wound will naturally be itchy and unbearable if it heals quickly. But in order to not leave a scar and affect the healing, I advise you to not use your hands to scratch it." Shi Lanling's hands stiffened. She was about to retort. How could it heal so quickly? Suddenly, her eyes widened as she stared at the glass mirror in front of her. The wound on her face was actually healing. It was really healing. Moreover, as time passed, the numbness and itchiness on his face became more and more intense, but the speed at which his wounds healed was also getting faster and faster. Shi Lanling didn't know how much time had passed, but it was definitely less than a quarter of an hour. The 3 scars on her face had already begun to scab. One strip even fell off, revealing new flesh underneath. But as Mu Yin said, although there were scars, they weren't deep. In less than 3 days, it would completely disappear. 15 minutes is up. Mayan curls up a strand of hair hanging by the side of her face, unhurriedly saying, "I wonder if Shixianzi is satisfied with the healing of her wounds?" Shi Lanling's entire body stiffened. Her face was lifeless and overwhelmed with shock. She couldn't utter a single word. Ruizhu couldn't help but take a closer look. She couldn't help but shout, "Miss, your wound has really healed completely. How could this be? How could there be such a miraculous draft in this world?" Mayan sneers. She turns around and takes Xiaobao from Di Mingju's arms and kisses him on the cheek. "Humph, so what if you can refine pills?" Even if she didn't know how to refine pills, she could still throw this woman 10 streets away. But thinking that the 9 orifices golden dan she ate was refined by this disgusting woman, Mu Yin was still very unhappy. Wasn't it just refining pills? She did not believe that she could not learn it. As soon as Xiaobao is in Mayan's arms, he immediately hugs her neck and says in a crisp voice, "Nyangqin's draft is the most powerful." This intimate appearance is completely different from when she was in Di Mingju's arms. Han Yi mockingly looks at the absent-minded Shi Lanling. He didn't know if this woman was stupid or mentally ill. Why did he have to stick his face out to be slapped again and again? It's not enough for Jun Shang to beat him. He still wants to let little Gongzi beat him. The young master wasn't satisfied and wanted Miss Jun to hit him again. TSK. When a person starts acting cheap, there's really no saving him. Shixianzi, now that your wounds have healed, may I ask if there's anything else? If there's nothing else, please leave quickly. Our Emperor Garden does not allow outsiders to approach. Shi Lanling's body swayed, and she turned around to leave. But just as she was about to leave, Mu Yin suddenly said with a smile, "Oh, right, there's something I forgot to tell Shixianzi. Just now, when I had Shixianzi use the healing draft, I accidentally mixed in a wisp of white jade purple frost." Chapter 370. Saying that, without waiting for Shi Lanling's reaction, he carries Xiaobao and directly walks into the Emperor Garden. The Emperor Garden's door slams shut, and Shi Lanling's eyes are all filled with horror. His body, which was already on the verge of collapsing, trembled in fear. White jade purple frost, that's a famous poison in the Yinwu continent. Who has the guts to say that they can easily cure it? Now that she's been poisoned by this white jade purple frost, could it be that her lifetime's cultivation is gone just like that? No. How could it be? June Mayan, you slut. How could you harm me like this? June Mayan, a hoarse roar mixed with bone-deep hatred spits out from Shi Lanling's mouth. June Mayan, I, Shi Lanling, swear that you will die without a burial ground. You want to go back to the Junji Medical Center? The man sitting at the desk slowly raises his head. There's no expression on his handsome face, but a pair of deep eyes are fixed on her. Mayan inexplicably feels that the heat in those eyes is somewhat astonishing. She also feels that the imposing manner of the man who has just raised his head carries an unfamiliar majesty. In fact, Mayan doesn't know what Di Mingju's identity is. But just by looking at his innate grace and nobility, as well as the look in his eyes that doesn't put any creature in the Yinwu continent in his eyes, she knows that this person's background must be extraordinary. Perhaps it's not something that anyone in the Yinwu continent could bear. It's just that when Di Mingju is in front of her, he tends to show some childishness. Occasionally, he would even shamelessly act shamelessly. So much so that she often forgets that this man may have another side that she's completely unaware of. Ice cold, powerful, aloof, just like an emperor who rules over the world. Mayan composes herself, then reins back her thoughts. That's right. I've already bothered you long enough. The Junji Medical Center can't be left unattended, and my subordinates are also waiting for me to return. I think it's time for me to leave. Di Mingju's eyes darken, and he slowly gets up. As the man approaches, Mayan feels a burning and dangerous aura. However, just as she's about to step back, the man's deep voice comes to her ears. Good. You can go back? Mayan is startled and subconsciously raises her head. Agreed? The person who had imprisoned her here and refused to let her leave actually let her go so easily? The corner of Di Mingju's mouth hooks up into a shallow arc. What? Actually, you don't want to go? Without saying another word, Mu Yin turns around and leaves. However, when she was about to board the carriage with Xiaobao in her arms. However, he still couldn't help glancing over at the slowly closing Emperor Garden's gate. For some unknown reason, a trace of disappointment and loneliness surged into his heart. Mother? Xiaobao's voice resounded by her ear. It was clear and melodious, yet it carried a trace of loneliness. Isn't that person coming to see us off? Even though she kept calling him a lecher and saying that she despised him. But when that person walked in front of that hateful woman and said, "This Lord's son is not someone you have the right to teach a lesson to," Xiaobao felt his little heart thumping nonstop. A kind of pride and joy that he had never felt before welled up in his heart, making him flustered and bewildered. Even though the person he loves the most in the world is his mother, even though as long as he has his mother, he can do without anything. However, if Xiaobao had a father, would he be like that person? Chapter 371. In the end, Di Mingju didn't come out, not even to send them off. The carriage the Emperor Garden had prepared for them was very large. The spacious space was more than enough to accommodate 7 or 8 people. There was even a bed at the back of the carriage so that Mu Yin and Xiaobao could take a nap during the journey. Mu Yin thinks that she should let Xiaobao sleep on the road. When they arrive at the Junji Medical Center, perhaps Xiaobao won't be so disappointed. She would not be reluctant to part with that man. She sighed softly, opened the carriage door, and was about to enter. His gaze suddenly fell on the figure on the bed, and he was instantly dumbfounded. Di Mingju? Mu Yin unconsciously raises her voice. Why are you here? Di Mingju is reclining on the bed, his posture languid, his entire person brimming with seductive charm. His voice was so deep and magnetic that it could make people's ears pregnant. This is Ben Jun's carriage. Why can't Ben Jun be here? No one knew who had closed the door of the carriage. With a creaking sound, the inside of the carriage became an enclosed space. The originally spacious carriage suddenly became extremely crowded. This was because almost every inch of the air was filled with the domineering aura of the man. Mayan composes herself and says with a hollow laugh, "How could it be good to have Jun Shang send us back? Jun Shang, you'd better return." Di Mingju lifts his eyelids, lightly turning a page of the book in his hand. Ben Jun didn't want to send you back? Then why did you come in? Di Mingju turns another page of the book, his expression unspeakably natural, Didn't you say you wanted to go home? This monarch will naturally go back with you. Saying that, he raised his eyes to look at Mu Yin and Xiao Bao. Our family is together. How can we be separated? Mu Yin, I'd be a fool to believe you. Whose family with you? Even little Bao's large and glistening blue eyes were opened wide as if she was complaining about his shamelessness. However, before the two of them could say anything, Dimingju's slender fingers turned another page of the book. Just then, a thin piece of paper floated out of the book and landed on the ground. Mu Yin stares blankly. Her line of sight shifts from that piece of paper to the book in Dimingju's hands. Then, she made a shocking discovery. That book was in her space. Why did it fall into Dimingju's hands? Could it be that she had taken the book out of the space and forgotten to put it back? Just as Mu Yin had this doubt in her mind, her attention was immediately attracted by the paper that was floating down, only to see that Dimingju is also slightly astonished. He stoops down to pick up the folded paper from the ground, slowly unfolding it. As the paper unfolds, a spark suddenly flashes through Mayan's mind. He finally remembered what this piece of paper was. His expression changed. Don't open it. However, her words were still too late. Dimingju unfolds the paper and sees the man reclining on the couch, his clothes half undone. He raises his eyebrows with interest. The corners of his mouth curled up into a joyful and deep arc. He turns the paper in his hand to face Mu Yin and Xiao Bao. I didn't expect that you, Mu Yin, would actually be so obsessed with Bin Jun. Mu Yan's face burns fiercely. Even his son, who was in his arms, looked at him curiously. This painting is naturally the half-fortune and half-fruit painting that she made for Dimingju. After she was done, she thought about tearing the painting up or throwing it away. Chapter 372. Mayan couldn't bear to throw it away, but she felt uncomfortable keeping it, so she folded it and placed it between the pages of the book. How could she have thought that Dimingju would take her book, and as luck would have it, it's the one with the painting. But what kind of person was Mu Yin? Her panic only lasted for a moment before a faint smile appeared on her beautiful face. In the eyes of a painter, there is no difference between men and women, only whether a model is perfect or not. Jun Shang's appearance and figure are 1 in a million. After I entered the painting, I would occasionally take it out to admire it. Is there anything strange about that? Upon hearing this, Xiao Bao immediately nodded. Nyang Qin also drew nude pictures of Liu Beiyu's bodyguards and the people of the ink camp. What's so strange about adding another lecture? In the future, when he grows up and becomes strong and tall, he will also let his mother draw for him. Dimingju's complexion stiffens, and he somewhat gnashes his teeth. This heartless woman. Could it be that in her eyes, Bin Juanshang is the same as her subordinates? Especially when he remembers the scene when he took Mayan away that day. More than a dozen men bare their chests and bellies in front of Mu Yin, and one of them even looks at him with a burning gaze. As soon as he thought of such a scene, Dimingju couldn't wait to lock Yang Kai back into the Emperor Garden. Mu Yin sees that the man has suffered a setback, and her mood is finally at ease. She carried Xiao Bao and sat down on the bed. Before she could retract her smile, the man's tall figure suddenly approached her. He pressed Xiao Bao against the wall of the carriage. A scorching breath blows on Mayan's face. Bin Jun dares to guarantee that after drawing Bin Jun's body, you will never look at another man's body again. Mayan, Bin Jun believes that from now on, you will no longer be able to lift your brush to paint like this. Unless the subject of your painting is me. The man's voice was resolute and decisive, and his voice contained an infuriating confidence. The veins on Mu Yan's forehead are throbbing, and she really wants to spit it back. However, she sadly realized that she couldn't refute him. After seeing Dimingju's perfect body, if she were to draw another man's naked body, she really couldn't bring herself to do it. Damn it, this bastard really hit the nail on the head. As the three people go back and forth, the carriage returns to Tianyuan City, stopping in front of the Junji Medical Center. Such a large and luxurious carriage appearing in the Junji Medical Center very quickly attracts the onlookers inside and outside the medical center. Although Mayan has been missing for 7 days, the Junji Medical Center is still operating normally. It's just that if Mayan doesn't come, then the Junji Medical Center would lose its original advantage. One day, it would be squeezed out by other medical centers. Therefore, when he sees Mu Yin leading Xiaobao down from the carriage, whether it's the doctors or the patients in the Junji Medical Center, they all let out a cheer. Some of them came forward to welcome him, while others went in to call for help. In just a moment, a few figures rushed out like the wind. Miss, young master, Yin Yin. Before Mu Yin can react, she is hugged by someone. Xin Jinglin grabs her and looks her up and down for a while. After making sure that she's all right, he breathes a sigh of relief. Yin Yin, where did you go? Why did you leave for so long? Do you know how worried I am? There's also Xiaobao. He said that you told him to go find you. Such a small child. How could you let him act alone? Brother knows that you're all very powerful, but as soon as Shen Jinglin sees Mu Yin, he starts to fire off a barrage of criticism. Chapter 373. Brother, I know I was wrong. Mayan grabs Shen Jinglin's hand and shakes it. Her face has a rare naive look like a young girl throwing a tantrum. Don't worry, how could I allow myself and Xiaobao to fall into danger? Ever since he was a child, Shen Jinglin couldn't do anything to his most precious little sister. So even though he's been on tenterhooks for 7 days, he can only dotingly tap her forehead, his face helpless. But this time, without waiting for Shen Jinglin to move, Mayan's collar is suddenly pulled by someone. She bumps straight into a hard embrace. Immediately after, the originally noisy entrance of the clinic immediately falls into a deathly silence, so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Everyone's gazes are fixed on the person behind Mayan. Under the heavens, how could such a good-looking man grow up? Jade-like, extraordinarily handsome, and elegant. These kinds of adjectives seem to tarnish his temperament when used on him. The man is like a handsome and aloof god. Wherever he stands, that's where the throne of supremacy is. Shen Jinglin blankly stares at this man who carries his little sister away, and then embraces her body, each and every movement declaring his ownership. He only feels that his breathing has stopped. His mouth is slightly open, and he can't say a word for a long time. Yin Yin, this is? Mayan glares at Dimingju. Does this man dare to grab her in another way? Every time he grabs her and Xiaobao's collars, does he think they're sacks? Dimingju's reaction is to tighten his grip on her waist, clearly declaring his ownership. This one is Dimingju, Mayan's fiancé. The man's voice is low and cold, but it's like a muffled thunder, smashing in the middle of everyone. Fiancé? Shen Jinglin suddenly raises his voice. When did you have a fiancé? Brother, don't listen to his nonsense. I didn't. Before Mayan could finish her words, the man pinches her chin, raises his head, and seals her little mouth. After a moment, Dimingju releases her and carelessly says, Yin Yin, you and I have already had intimate skin contact, bathing together like mandarin ducks. Don't tell me you still want to be irresponsible? The veins on Mayan's forehead bulge. Go to hell with your skin-to-skin contact and bathing together. You make it sound like the two of them have already done that. All she did was draw a painting of Bangwa, take off a few of his clothes, and soak in the hot spring pool together. That was all. Muyin felt that she couldn't think about it anymore. If these words were spoken, not only would they not be able to clarify the situation, her brother would even force them to get married immediately. Shen Jinglin looked at the scene in front of him, and his body swayed. You already. Shen Jinglin stutters for a long time. Then he suddenly glares at Dimingju. How dare you make a move on my little sister? How dare you? How dare you be so intimate with my little sister in public? I'll kill you, you lecher. Shen Jinglin was really anxious at this time. Anyone who saw their cute and obedient little sister being taken advantage of by a pig would be shocked. Moreover, it was in front of a large crowd. This was intolerable. He clenches his fist, concentrating 100% of his profound energy in the palm of his hand, and fiercely punches towards Dimingju. However, that fist that can shatter mountains and split rocks arrives in front of Dimingju, but he easily catches it. The man in front of him clearly didn't use any force. There's not even a fluctuation of mysterious energy around him. Chapter 374. There was nothing to focus on, and there was no direction to attack. But unfortunately, his hand was controlled by this void, and his profound strength seemed to have been sealed, unable to be used in the slightest. Xin Jinglin looks up at Deming Ju in shock. This man was so strong. He was even stronger than his sister. Then, he couldn't help but look at the two people who were extremely close to him. It was truly a match made in heaven and earth, unparalleled. Xin Jinglin vaguely had an illusion that in this world, there was only one man who could stand by her younger sister's side and not be overshadowed. And vice versa. Deming Ju releases Xin Jinglin's hand. The haughtiness and nobility on his body receded a little. I also think that it's very irresponsible of me to have a physical relationship without the permission of my parents or the words of a matchmaker. As long as Mayan is willing, Bin Jun is willing to make it up at any time. Xin Jinglin was startled. You mean, you want to marry my younger sister? Of course. As long as Yin Yin is willing, the wedding can be held at any time. Saying that, he looks down at Mayan. Or is it to say, Yin Yin, you're not willing to take responsibility for Bin Jun? Mu Yin grinds her teeth. This bastard. Can he be any more shameless? And who are you calling Yin Yin? Do I know you that well? In the end, Jun Shangdaran relies on his thick skin and peerless appearance to successfully move into the Junji Medical Center's backyard. Moreover, the location of the room was close to Mu Yin and Xiao Bao's. Mu Yin repeatedly assures Xin Jinglin that she and Deming Ju are innocent, and she doesn't intend to get married for the time being. Xin Jinglin hesitantly walked away. Before leaving, he's still nagging, Yin Yin, even if you really like that person, you must still carefully investigate him. You mustn't casually marry him. What if you trusted the wrong person and met an evil person like Jingya? Then you... Mu Yin raises the corner of her mouth, revealing a gentle smile. Then I'll completely cripple him. Xin Jinglin shuddered. He had almost forgotten how valiant his sister was. How could there be a man in this world who could bully Yin Yin? Mayan only breathes a sigh of relief after Xin Jinglin leaves. Her brother was becoming more and more like a nanny. His incessant interrogation was almost unbearable. However, even though he could not withstand it, amidst such troubles, there was even more sweetness. Because only those who truly cared about you would care about you over and over again. Worry about your happiness, anger, sorrow, and happiness, and worry about your future. Mu Yin caught her breath and saw that Xiao Bao was already a little drowsy in her arms. She then sent him into the space and placed him together with the fat rabbit, who was sleeping soundly on his back. He then returned to the front hall and summoned Yin Haoyin, Feng Haidang, Ru Yin, Old Tao, Chang Yu, Chen Qingfeng, and the others. Has anything happened in the past few days? Ru Yin bowed and answered, everything is as usual in the medical center these days. However, Mr. Yin said that there seemed to be unfamiliar powerhouses appearing in the vicinity of the medical center. Their origins and goals are unknown. Mu Yin looks at Yin Haoyin. Yin Haoyin raised his hand and made a few hand gestures. Some of them have higher cultivation bases than me and Old Tao. We're no match for them. Mu Yin slightly frowns. Maybe Qian Qing had received news that the poison man and his disciple had been killed, and so he had sent someone to investigate. Chapter 375. When Ru Yin and the others see so many drafts, they all reveal looks of pleasant surprise. During this period of time, whether it's the Tianji unit or the ink camp, the drafts have pretty much been consumed. And the draft that Mayan refines is unique. It was impossible to go to the pharmacy outside to restock. Ru Yin and Yin Haoyin are worried about what to do with the training of the Tianji unit and the ink camp. Now that Mayan has given them so many special drafts, how could they not be happy? Right. Where's Liu Beiyu? Why don't I see him? Mu Yin suddenly asked. Reporting to Miss, Ru Yin bowed and said, the Third Highness has not returned since he left yesterday. Mu Yin looks up in astonishment. Because before you disappeared, Miss, you mentioned that in order to treat the third prince's eldest brother, you might need a lot of rare herbs. Therefore, during this period of time, His Highness has been wandering around various large pharmacies. If there's someone in the Junji Medical Center who has the most confidence in Mu Yin and Xiao Bao, then it's definitely Liu Beiyu. The others were more or less worried about whether Mu Yin would suffer a loss, whether Xiao Bao would be abducted on the road. But Liu Beiyu firmly believes. What kind of people are master and little brother? Anyone who wanted to harm them in this world would definitely be beaten until half of their body was paralyzed, and they would be in an incomparably miserable state. I just have to wait here obediently, collect the medicinal herbs, and wait for Master to come back to save my big brother. Ru Yin thought of Liu Beiyu's calmness and self-confidence and couldn't help but sigh in her heart. This Qi Yin country's Third Highness clearly doesn't have the strength to truss a chicken, but he can become the Mrs. Apprentice and the Little Master's approved junior brother. There's really a reason for that. But you don't have to worry, Mississippi, Ru Yin promptly adds. When His Highness left, he brought bodyguards with him, and there were also 2 people from the ink camp following him. However, in Tianyuan City, there shouldn't be any danger. Mu Yin slightly frowns, then nods. Her stupid disciple wouldn't be so unlucky as to fall into someone's hands, right? Although the Emperor Garden's layout was luxurious and comfortable, it was still not as good as his own home. That night, Mu Yin and Xiao Bao slept soundly. Xiao Bao's cheeks were rosy. Although there was no expression on his little face, his eyes were especially bright and moist. But today, Xiao Bao sticks to Mu Yin even more than usual. While Mu Yin was washing up, he was also hugging her thigh, looking up at her, as if he was afraid that his mother would disappear again. When it's time to eat, he gets tired of Mu Yin's embrace and lets Mu Yin feed him. Since Mayan hasn't seen Xiao Bao for 7 days, her longing for him will not lessen by even a little. Not only did he not reject Xiao Bao's clinginess, but he was also very happy. The two are like this: you feed me a mouthful, I feed you a spoonful. During this time, Mayan has to lower her head and kiss Xiao Bao's little face. Then, Xiao Bao blushed and kissed Mayan on the cheek. It was extremely sticky. When Diming Ju comes in, he sees this scene. The sea of vinegar in his heart turns the sky and the earth upside down on the spot. He strode forward, grabbed Xiao Bao by the collar, and lifted him up. "Let me go." Xiao Bao screams in anger, using both his hands and feet to struggle free. But his hands and legs are short. How can he break free from Diming Ju? Mayan promptly reaches out to snatch him back. "Diming Ju, let go of my son." But Diming Ju turns a deaf ear, coldly looking at Xiao Bao. "Finished eating breakfast?" Chapter 376. After you're done eating, go to the backyard and cultivate. Diming Ju unhurriedly says in a mocking tone, "Didn't you say that you would become stronger in the future and protect your mother? Is this how you protect her now?" Xiao Bao's face went stiff, and the anger on his face faded away. However, he was still stubborn. "I don't need you to tell me that. I'll train myself, and one day, I'll be stronger than you." Hee, not bad. He loosened his grip, and Xiao Bao fell to the ground. However, he didn't pester Mu Yin like before. Instead, he glanced at Mu Yin. "Mother, Xiao Bao is going to cultivate." After saying that, he strode towards the backyard. Mu Yin looks at his small and lonely figure and feels a little distressed. Her Xiao Bao was only 4 years old. Other 4-year-old children were still acting like spoiled children in their parents' arms, but he had to bear so much. But in the end, she said nothing. Instead, he watches as that little figure arrives at the backyard and methodically begins to practice the martial skill that Diming Ju gave him. Mu Yin isn't someone who can't tell good from bad. She can see that the martial skill that Diming Ju gave Xiao Bao looks ordinary, but as he cultivates it, the mysterious energy within Xiao Bao's body is being purified and refined little by little. His cultivation did not increase rapidly, but his foundation became more and more stable. Although Xiao Bao's cultivation was still at the mid-heaven tier, his true strength had already surpassed Shi Lanling, who was also at the mid-heaven tier. And all of this was done by Diming Ju in secret, quietly for the sake of her and her mother. "Mu Yin." A deep male voice comes from behind her. Mu Yin turns around, only to see that Diming Ju is already leisurely sitting at the table, her and Xiao Bao's original position. Seeing Diming Ju slowly handing over the chopsticks, Mu Yin shows a puzzled expression. In the next moment, she hears the man use his magnetic and alluring voice to slowly say, "A family of 3, Mayan, You can't favor one and discriminate against the other. Favoritism? Favoritism? Mu Yin stares blankly at first, then she realizes what this man is saying. Was he implying that she had fed and kissed Xiaobao, so she had to feed and kiss him as well? Fuck. Could this man be any more shameless? After an indescribable breakfast, Xiaobao also finished his cultivation and returned to Mu Yan's side. His little face was flushed, and there were beads of sweat on his forehead. He was panting slightly, but his big eyes were full of excitement. The reason for that was because Xiaobao could sense that his strength was truly growing stronger every time he cultivated a martial skill. One day, he will be able to protect his mother. Mu Yan wipes the sweat from his face. Her eyes are indescribably gentle. Xiaobao is really great. Nyangqin will take you to take a bath, okay? Xiaobao nodded heavily. However, before Mu Yin could hold Xiaobao's hand, Xiaobao's small body has already soared into the air and is held in Di Mingju's arms. This time, Jun Shang's posture of holding the child has become very standard. Unfortunately, Xiaobao didn't appreciate it. He struggled angrily. Let me go. I want to be with mother. You're a real man, and you still want your mother to bathe you? Di Mingju unhurriedly spits out a sentence. In an instant, little Bao's shouts were silenced. But thinking of his mother using gentle movements to scrub his back and wash his hair, Xiaobao was somewhat unwilling. Her small hands can't help but stretch out in Mayan's direction. Mu Yin promptly reaches out to hug him. Xiaobao is still so young. What's wrong with me bathing him? Di Mingju, let go. Let me hold him. Chapter 377. An affectionate mother spoils her son. In the future, when we have a daughter, Mayan is completely stupefied. By the time she comes back to herself, Di Mingju has already carried Xiaobao away. She almost spits out a mouthful of old blood from her chest. Scoundrel, who wants to have a daughter with you? Di Mingju carries Xiaobao through the corridor and the crowd, heading towards the bath in the courtyard. Xiaobao still wants to struggle. Di Mingju says, "You've made good progress these days. That palm against Shi Lonling, you didn't lose my face." Xiaobao's struggling movements stop. His little face is already taut, but there's an inexplicable pride and joy bubbling in his heart. This is the first time this man has praised him. Although he doesn't want to admit it, he feels very happy. Di Mingju continues, "The martial technique I'm teaching you is only the most basic one. If you can reach the 10th rank within 10 days, I'll teach you a more profound one, and I'll also give you a storage ring as a reward." Xiaobao's eyes are bright, staring straight at Di Mingju. Really? In fact, he really wants a storage space like Nyangqin's. That way, he can go out alone to collect treasures and herbs, and then come back to give them to Nyangqin. Nyangqin originally wanted to give Di Mingju to her, to Xiaobao, but Xiaobao refuses. Although he's young, he knows how serious the consequences would be if the Tian and Mo-Qin's space were to be known. Nyangqin can use this storage ring as a cover. How could he take it? But now, this person says that he will give one to him. Di Mingju carelessly says, "Of course it's true, but you're already a man. You're not allowed to stick to your Nyangqin all the time." Xiaobao immediately looks at him with a contemptuous gaze. "I knew it. You're up to no good. You just want to dominate my Nyangqin. Your Nyangqin is mine." "Nonsense, Nyangqin is mine." The two quarrel all the way to the bath. Han Yi and Ing Mei, who were originally guarding outside the courtyard, are already numb from shock when they see this scene. Ever since they got to know Miss June, it's already common for their Jun Shang to do things that he wouldn't do. Now, not only has Jun Shang learned to hold a child, his movements are also very skilled. They would even argue with children in a very childish manner. If this scene were to be seen by those people from the polar domain, the scene would be too beautiful, unimaginable. Changyu stands not too far away, watching the scene of Di Mingju and Xiaobao getting along harmoniously. After staring blankly for a long time, he lowered his eyes to hide the pain and loneliness in them. The scene of the man and the young lady standing together appeared in his mind again. That kind of beauty, that kind of match, only this kind of man is worthy of Miss, right? Changyu laughed at himself. Then, all the expressions on his face disappeared, leaving behind only determination and calmness. Hadn't he already decided to stay by Mrs.'s side? As for that kind of lowly feeling, it was something that he shouldn't have. He had long decided to bury it at the bottom of his heart. Don't let anyone know. As long as he could still protect the young miss and the young master from afar, it was enough. After Xiao Bao and Di Mingju leave, Mayan still plans to go out and look for her stupid apprentice. After advancing to high-level Xiantian realm, Mu Yin could feel that her strength had increased by a large margin. Moreover, for some reason, she felt that there was a restless energy in her body. Chapter 378. Mu Yin didn't alarm anyone when she left. Even Ning Mei and Han Yi, who were guarding her, didn't discover her whereabouts. Going outside, apart from looking for stupid apprentices, Mu Yin also wants to collect some materials for alchemy. She admits that she was stimulated by the matter of Di Mingju asking Shi Lanling to do alchemy. She originally didn't plan to do alchemy anymore after the furnace explosion last time, but now, she decides to give it a try again. Isn't it just alchemy? She doesn't believe that she can't do it. However, not long after Mu Yin steps onto the street, she discovers that she's being followed. She raises her eyebrows, casually strolls through a few medicine shops, and eventually walks into a remote and deserted alley. Greetings, Miss Ju. The moment Mu Yin entered the alley, a few figures silently landed in front of her. Seeing them, Mu Yin raises her eyebrows in surprise. As Yin Haoyan said, these people's cultivation is very high. They're at least at the peak of Earth stage, and quite a few have even reached Heaven stage. It's no wonder that Ru Yin and the others are deeply worried. It's just that these people's attitude towards her doesn't seem to be something that Qian Qing's subordinates would have. Mu Yin raises her eyebrows. You followed me all the way. What exactly do you want to do? The leader is a chubby, kind-looking middle-aged man in embroidered robes. He looks very harmless, but Mu Yin knows that this person has the highest cultivation among this group of black-clothed people. He takes a step forward and slightly salutes Mu Yin. Miss June, my Wangya invites you. I hope that Miss June will come back with us. Your Wangya? Mu Yin is surprised. Sure enough, it's not Qian Qing. But when did she know Wangya? The middle-aged man in embroidered robes shows a hint of pride on his face, but his expression is still gentle, even humble. My Wangya is Huangyao country's Jean Wangya. I've admired Mrs. Good name for a long time, and hope to see your face. Huangyao country's Jean Wangya? Mu Yin frowns. This name seems somewhat familiar, but she can't remember it for a while. She hears the middle-aged man in embroidered robes continue. The last time you proposed, it was Steward's son who acted on his own initiative, causing Miss to suffer grievances. Even if he died, he only had himself to blame, and no one could blame him. But my family's prince's love for you can be seen by the heaven and earth. You must not misunderstand him. Hearing Steward's son's marriage proposal, Mayan's memory finally recovers. Oh, so it was that prince who wanted to marry her as a concubine. In the end, that guy Di Mingju just happened to come looking for her, and his neck was magnificently broken. The shock that Di Mingju gave her at that time was so deep that she forgot that a Wangya had once proposed marriage to her. Seeing Mu Yan's sudden realization, the middle-aged man's expression could not help but stiffen. Jian Wangya of Huangyao country, that is an outstanding and famous figure in the entire Yinwu continent. What kind of woman wasn't easy for him to get? Moreover, after he usually takes a fancy to a woman, Jian Wangya would turn his head and get tired of playing with her, throwing her to the back of his mind. But this Miss June was a complete exception. Not a single one of the teams that the prince had sent out to ask for her hand in marriage had returned. They had disappeared without a trace. It took them a long time to find out that that group of people had died, and they had died in Junji drugstore. Then there was their prince's obsession with Miss June. At first, he only searched for beauties. Chapter 379. Unfortunately, this Miss June has completely forgotten about their Wangya's marriage proposal. But what kind of person is this embroidered middle-aged man? What kind of great winds and waves has he not seen? He quickly adjusts his expression and says with a smile, Miss June, we have come with full sincerity to invite you to the Fu for a chat. Please don't refuse. Mayan looks at them with a smile that isn't a smile. What if I insist on refusing? The middle-aged man's eyes deepen. his tone becoming more and more respectful. But the words he says make Mayan frown for the first time. Our Wangya has taken a fancy to Miss June. In any case, we wouldn't dare to make a move against Mississippi, but there's one thing that I hope Miss June knows. Our Wangya has always been on good terms with Qi Yan's royal family. This time, we accidentally ran into Qi Yan's Third Highness, so we specifically invited him to Jin Wangfu to have a good chat with Wangya. Mayan's eyes slowly narrow, her whole body emitting a dangerous light. You've caught Liu Beiyu. In her heart, she can't help but lament for this stupid apprentice. What kind of fate is this? Getting caught at every turn, threatened, or even made a cuckold. This stupid apprentice's 8 characters shouldn't be innately evil, right? Seeing Mayan's expression, the middle-aged man can't help but laugh. How could it be called a capture? We're just inviting His Highness to be a guest, that's all. Of course, if Miss June doesn't want to go back with us, then whether His Highness is a guest or a prisoner, this one doesn't dare to guarantee. Mayan's eyes focus, and her figure suddenly disappears. The middle-aged man's expression changes. In the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint, he only feels a breeze brushing past his face. The next moment, a hand as white as jade has already gently pinched his neck. The middle-aged man widens his eyes in horror, looking at the beautiful face that's within reach, his face full of disbelief. When did she come over? Why didn't he see her movements clearly just now? The middle-aged man instinctively operates the mysterious energy within his body, wanting to fight back. He's a strong person at the peak of heaven stage. It's reasonable to say that June Mayan, a girl who's not even in her 20s, can't possibly be his opponent. But when he operates his mysterious energy, he shockingly finds that his mysterious energy seems to be sucked away by a huge force. Like a clay ox entering the sea, it disappeared without a trace. The shock in the middle-aged man's heart was like a monstrous tidal wave. Who was this June Mayan? Could he be stronger than her? A young girl was stronger than him. What kind of cultivation was that? Could it be innate stage? How was this possible? With such talent, isn't she 10,000 times more powerful than Jingcheng country's Princess Jinxue? The middle-aged man was bewildered and couldn't help but want to gather his dark force and counterattack again. However, the hands around his neck suddenly let go. The girl's figure suddenly retreated like a cloud of smoke, and then leisurely stood still. All right, I have no choice but to accept your threat. I'll follow you back to Huangyao country. The middle-aged man stares blankly, looking at Mayan in disbelief. An ominous premonition arose in his heart. If Jin Wangya insists on marrying this woman, wouldn't it be the arrival of a catastrophe instead? But very quickly, he shook his head and shook off this thought, bowing and saying, Miss June, please, the carriage is already waiting at the entrance of the alley. From here to Huangyao country, it will take us at most 3 days to reach there. The author has something to say. Chapter 380. Mayan slowly nods, her long eyelashes drooping down. She looks like a weak and harmless girl, too weak to stand up to the wind. What kind of great threat is there? The middle-aged man immediately throws that ominous thought to the back of his mind. A less than 20 years old pre-celestial. How is that possible? His eyes must have been blurred just now, and his senses must have made a mistake. That's why he had such an absurd idea. The middle-aged man lets people escort Mayan to the carriage, and he takes his men to clean up the traces left behind. According to the information investigated, there is a very powerful man at Mayan's side. Steward's son was killed by that man. Although Jin Wangya's Fu isn't afraid of anyone, it's better to have less trouble. As long as Wangya and Miss June are married, what's done is done. What's done is done. Even if Miss June had a lover before, what's the matter? It's not the first time that his Wangya has snatched a woman from another man. Things that are snatched are always especially interesting. After cleaning up all the traces, the middle-aged man complacently leaves with his men. The whole alley is quiet, as if no one has been there. Jin Wangfu. Wangya, don't drive us away. We are willing to serve you for the rest of our lives. Wangya, I beg you. Wangya, the sun and moon can attest to Xiangxiang's feelings for you. How can Xiangxiang live without you? Even if a new Wang Fei enters the door, we will be obedient and not make the new Wang Fei unhappy. I beg Wang Ye, don't drive us away. Woo woo. Outside the courtyard, the sound of several women's heartbroken cries can be heard. But inside the room, a tall and handsome man is leaning on the bed, holding a cup of wine in his hand and sipping tea. There's not a trace of emotion on his face. Jin Wang Ye, didn't you hear that your lovely wife and beautiful concubine are sobbing, reluctant to part with you? You actually have a heart of stone. You don't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Not far from the man sits a handsome youth. If mine were here, she would certainly recognize that this person is Liu Beiyu, who has been missing for several days. And the man on the bed is naturally Jin Wang Ye of Huangyao country. Listening to Liu Beiyu's words, Jin Wang Ye chuckles. How can these vulgar women be compared to Mayan? If Binwang doesn't drive these people out, how can I show my determination to marry Mayan? Stop dreaming. Liu Beiyu could no longer control his emotions. With a flushed face, he angrily says, how could my master marry someone like you? You're practically a toad lusting after swan meat. Being provoked like this, Jin Wang Ye's eyes flash with a trace of obvious indignation. However, it very quickly turns into an invasion overflowing with interest. The harder it is to obtain a woman, the more interested this prince is. Not to mention a woman like Jun Mayan, who can refine godly drafts, a woman of the highest quality that can revive the dead and regrow flesh and bones. Liu Beiyu clenches his teeth and says, do you think that just relying on Jin Wangfu's trash, they can take my master away? I know that Jun Mayan's cultivation isn't low. Jin Wangye smiles meaningfully, but don't I still have you in my hands? You're Jun Mayan's only disciple. Knowing that her disciple is in trouble, tell me, would she not come to save you? You want to use me to threaten master? Liu Beiyu gets so angry that he suddenly stands up, the tea in his hand ruthlessly splashing towards Jin Wangye. However, a white shadow flashed before his eyes. Chapter 381. Liu Beiyu glares at the man blocking in front of Jin Wangye. He sees that his expression is cold, but his face is incomparably handsome, gentle like jade. The temperament around him makes people feel like they can't take their eyes off him. The person in front of him is actually the former #1 genius of Yinwu continent, the dustless swordsman, by I Ching. Liu Beiyu can't understand it. How could the world's #1 Gongzi be reduced to Jin Wangye's lackey? Liu Beiyu, seeing that you're her apprentice, I won't kill you. But you'd better obediently stay here and participate in Bin Wang and Mu Yan's wedding. Otherwise, don't blame Bin Wang for making you wish you were dead, unable to die. Liu Beiyu's actions clearly make Jin Wangye angry. He waves his hand and says, Bai Qin, take him away and keep a good watch over him. He must not be allowed to run away. When Mu Yan arrives, she can't find out where he is. Bai Qin gives a slight bow, his voice faint. Yes, Wangye. Then, regardless of Liu Beiyu's ruckus, he directly carries him away. Walking out of the entrance of the Wangfu, a cold glint flashes through Bai Qin's eyes. In the end, all the women of Jin Wangfu are dragged out. The Wangfu that was originally crammed full of orioles and swallows is suddenly emptied out. The servants serving in the Wangfu have all heard that Wangye is doing all this in order to welcome the real Jin Wangfei. And the identity of this Jin Wangfei simply makes the maids and guards of the Wangfu extremely curious. It should be known that Jin Wangye has been a tyrant for so many years. When has he not been surrounded by orioles and swallows, embracing women on his left and right? How could he possibly dismiss his concubines for a woman? What is this Wangfei's identity? Could it be that she's a princess from some country? What's a princess? Even Gong Qianxue, the #1 genius of Yinwu continent, can't be compared to our new Wangfei. Who is the new Wangfei? Do you know about the filter of barrier breaking that's currently being auctioned at a sky-high price in the Go City? Of course I know. I heard that it can't be bought even with 10 million gold coins. That draft was refined by our new Wangfei. Also, that Enchantress, who is currently in the limelight in Tianyuan City, is also our new Wangfei. Everyone who heard the news was shocked beyond words. Thus, when the carriages arrived at the main gate, Many maids and manservants couldn't help but sneak out to take a look. The curtain of the carriage was lifted. A young girl in a plain blue dress slowly walked down. The moment they see her, whether it's Jean Wangya, who is standing at the door to greet them, the guards behind him, or the servants hiding in the shadows, all of them simultaneously suck in a mouthful of cold air. So beautiful. Captivating birds and beasts, overshadowing the moon and putting flowers to shame. These words were not enough to describe this girl's exceptional beauty. Someone even thought to himself, it's no wonder that Jean Wangya dismissed his concubines. After seeing such a stunning woman, how could other common rouge and powder enter his eyes? After being stunned and infatuated, Jean Wangya suddenly comes back to his senses. He takes 2 or 3 steps forward to grab Mu Yan's hand. Mu Yan, Bin Wang has finally waited for you. Mu Yan unhurriedly takes a step back. The range of his movements isn't big, but he manages to avoid Jean Wangya's hand. She looked at the man in front of her nonchalantly and sneered, "Excuse me, who are you? I don't think I know you that well. Are you allowed to call Mu Yan?" Ga. Chapter 382. Is there something wrong with this girl's head? She actually dares to be this disrespectful to their Wangya? Doesn't she know that Jean Wangya is famous for being temperamental, ruthless, and ruthless? Jean Wangya's handsome face distorts for a moment. A man immediately steps forward from behind him, angrily saying, "How dare you? This is Huang Yao's Jean Wangya. How can you be so presumptuous?" "So you're Jean Wangya?" Mayan raises her eyebrows. "So, you're saying that you captured my apprentice and threatened me to come here?" The girl's voice is like a silver bell, with traces of clear jade and ice crystals. Listening to it, it makes people's hearts melt. Jean Wangya once again reveals what he considers to be a gentle and refined smile. "Bin Wang invited Mayan here because I admire you and hope to live together with you. How could it be a threat?" "Live together?" Mayan sneers. "You want me to be your side consort? Live together?" Jean Wangya's face immediately shows deep affection. He steps forward, wanting to pull Mayan into his embrace. "I won't hide it from you. Ever since Bin Wang saw Mayan, I've been captivated and couldn't forget her." In Bin Wang's eyes, the rest of the common rouge and powder are already unable to enter. Marrying you as a side consort was just my housekeeper acting on his own initiative. The sun and moon can attest to Mayan's heart. For you, Bin Wang has dismissed all the women in Jin Wangfu. Our wedding will be arranged in 7 days. At that time, you will be Bin Wang's official Wang Fei. Once you and I are married, Bin Wang will take you into the palace to meet my imperial brother. Although you're only from the lowest small country, Qi Yin, as long as you show off your talents in alchemy and medicine, I believe that my Huang Yao country would also be willing to recognize your identity as Jin Wang Fei. For a commoner woman from the lowest Qi Yin country, becoming a Wang Fei recognized by the emperor of Huang Yao country is tantamount to reaching the sky in a single bound. When he says these words, Jin Wangya has great confidence that Mayan will shed tears of gratitude. With a pleasantly surprised face, she throws herself into his embrace, turning into a soft embrace. There's an aloof expression in his eyes, as if he's giving alms. He thinks that he's doing Mayan a huge favor, but Mayan can't help but burst out laughing, although the girl's smile was as bright as a flower. However, the ridicule and contempt in that smile makes Jin Wangya's face distort once again, and Mayan's next sentence makes his expression instantly turn sinister. "It's not dark yet. Your Highness is already dreaming?" Mayan's eyes turn cold, sneering. "Your brain is not good. Your Excellency should go back and take more medicine to nourish yourself, lest a dignified Wangya comes out to make a fool of himself." Jin Wangya's eyes are frighteningly cold. His figure suddenly disappeared, and a powerful Xian Qi spread out. The surrounding Jin Wangfu guards, including the middle-aged man at the peak of heaven's stage who escorted Mayan over, all turned deathly pale with fright. In the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of Mu Yin and reached out to strangle her neck. However, just when everyone thinks that Mayan will perish under Jin Wangya's hands, Jin Wangya's figure and movements come to an abrupt halt. Mu Yin raises her slender jade hand, and between her slender fingers, There's a silver needle that's flickering with light. At the tip of the silver needle, there's a faintly discernible light blue radiance. The corners of Mayan's mouth gently curl up, as if she's casually gossiping. Jian Wangya had just said that I'm a draft apothecary. Take a guess. What kind of draft did I smear on this silver needle? Chapter 383. The silver needle in his neck was too close, almost less than an inch away. The cold air on the needle seemed to be slowly eroding his skin. Jian Wangya's complexion alternates between green and white. In his eyes, Jun Mayan is the woman he fancies. He could pamper and cherish her, but he could also need her as he pleased. However, he was being threatened by this woman in front of him, and in public, he was in a dilemma. Jian Wangya takes a deep breath, and only then does he force himself to suppress his gushing anger. He slowly takes a step back. A refined smile slowly hangs on his originally distorted face. Mayan, what are you doing? This prince wants to marry you because he truly loves you. Why must you be so heartless? After a pause, his lips curled into a cruel smile. What's more, even if Mayan is heartless towards this king, she wouldn't go so far as to be heartless towards the young prince of Qi Yin country, your disciple, right? Mayan narrows her eyes, a chill looming in her beautiful peach blossom eyes. Jian Wangya wants to use my apprentice to threaten me? So what if I am? Jian Wangya gazes deeply at Mayan's absolutely beautiful face, his face full of aggression and greed. The woman that Bin Wang wants has never been unable to obtain. But he smiled, and a folding fan appeared in his hand. He unfolded it and waved it gently. However, a melon that is forced is not sweet. Bin Wang will not force Mu Yin to be with me, but Bin Wang wants Mu Yin to stay here for 7 days. Mu Yin won't refuse, right? After 7 days, Bin Wang guarantees that if Mayan is still unwilling, you and Qi Yan's little prince will be safely sent back to Tianyuan City. Mu Yin sneers inwardly. Who was this guy trying to fool? They would really be released after 7 days. However, he couldn't ignore his stupid disciple's life. In any case, she still has to enter this Jin Wangfu. Just as Mayan is about to speak, she suddenly sees a familiar figure coming out of the Wangfu, standing by Jin Wangya's side. The man's cold and gentle voice sounded, Wangya, the matter you ordered has been completed. When Mu Yin saw the person who came, her pupils slightly contracted. It was actually Bai Qin. Why was he here? Coincidentally, Bai Qin also turned to look at him discreetly. Their gazes met, and their eyes rippled. Mayan's heart slightly sinks. Before Jin Wangya can notice the abnormality between the two of them, she quickly withdraws her gaze and slowly says, since that's the case, then I'll have to disturb Jin Wangya. After Mayan is taken away by the maidservant to rest, Jin Wangya can no longer bear the anger in his heart. There was an ear-piercing shattering sound. The cup on the table was smashed to the ground. A cold and gloomy voice spits out from his thin lips, good Jun Mayan. Just you wait. This king will definitely make you crawl under my feet and beg me to pamper you. Your Highness, please calm down. The middle-aged man who brought Mayan back takes a step forward and says respectfully, I think that Miss Jun's harsh words might not be because she doesn't adore you, but because she feels that she's not worthy of you. Jin Wangya coldly looks over, not saying anything. Whether it was love or not, he had eyes. How could he not see it? The middle-aged man revealed a meaningful smile. Your Highness has sent someone to investigate Miss Jun's information. You should know that Miss Jun was once pregnant out of wedlock and now has a 4-year-old son. Chapter 384. Hearing this, Jin Wangya's complexion finally improves a little. He opens the folding fan in his hand and gently waves it. Bin Wang naturally already knew that she had a child. However, this woman, Jun Mayan, is very remarkable. Just her ability to refine medicine and her medical skills alone, if Bin Wang could tie her to my side, it would be of great benefit. Not to mention that this woman also has a devastatingly beautiful appearance. That slim waist, that perfectly curved figure, it makes his lower abdomen tighten even more when he thinks of it, wishing that he could immediately taste the taste of an ecstatic corpse. The middle-aged man also nods, then smiles sinisterly. Therefore, this subordinate believes that Miss June refused to marry Wang Ye. Firstly, she feels that she is no longer pure and is not worthy of Wang Ye. Secondly, it should be because of that son of hers. This subordinate believes that as long as that son of hers is eliminated, all of Miss June's thoughts will be cut off. When the time comes, Miss June will definitely be willing to marry Wang Ye. At that time, she might even give birth to an intelligent young master for Wang Ye. Hearing the words, eliminate that son of hers, Jin Wang Ye's nose slightly shrinks. His eyes bloom with a cruel and jealous light. That's right, because of June Mayan's uniqueness, he doesn't mind that this woman once had a child. But when he remembers that this girl was once possessed by another man, he still feels resentment and disgust in his heart. Especially June Mayan's son. As long as he sees him, he will remember the fact that this woman once belonged to another man. If he can take this opportunity to eliminate him, and also cut off all of June Mayan's escape routes, that would really be the best. Jin Wang Ye tilts his head and looks over, slowly saying, I'll leave this matter to you. Please rest assured, Wang Ye. The middle-aged man shows a confident smile. It's just an insignificant child. If this subordinate can't handle it, then this subordinate would have no face to see Wang Ye. Within 7 days, this subordinate will definitely rush over to attend Wang Ye and the new Wang Fei's wedding. Late at night, the moon is dark and the wind is strong. The entire Jin Wangfu has sunk into silence. But Mayan is leisurely sitting in the darkness, pouring herself a cup of tea from time to time. Not far from her, several maids and guards that Jin Wangfu specially sent to watch over her are sleeping like dead pigs, snoring loudly. Suddenly, the door creaked. The silvery moonlight shone in through the window, accompanied by a tall figure dressed in white. Muyin couldn't help but raise the corner of her mouth. How have you been, Bai Yichen? Bai Yichen paused for a moment, then gently closed the door. How did you get targeted by Jin Wang Ye? Why are you here? Both of them blurted out at the same time. Bai Yichen's ice-cold eyes are slightly tinged with warmth. He quietly walks over to Mu Yin and sits down. In the darkness, he looks at Mayan's face, his eyes very focused. But his line of sight seemed to pierce through Mu Yin, looking into the distant past. Long time no see, Mayan. Ever since he helped Lin Sidong collect her remains in the dense fog forest, he had decided to embark on this path. He had almost forgotten the life he once had and the happiness he once had. Now that he saw Mayan, he suddenly recalled that final tranquility. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.